Chapter 77. It was often said that water and fire were incompatible. However, in the tea ceremony, water and fire had to work together in harmony to bring out the greatest power. The water in the bronze stove was boiling, bubbling. Qin Etienne left her seat and walked over to open the lid of the bronze kettle. She carefully observed the boiling water in the kettle. The first boil was like a fish's eye, making a faint sound. The second boil was like a gushing spring with pearls. The third boil was like a rattan wave. After the third boil, Qin Etienne immediately lifted the handle and moved the bronze kettle away from the charcoal. The bronze kettle was very big, but when Qin Etienne lifted it, she seemed effortless and easy. This woman was really good at playing the role of an Iron Man. "Seal the stove," Qin Etienne said. The boys from Class 9 immediately sealed the mouth of the stove with a piece of iron. Then they carried the charcoal stove and left. The degree of boiling of the water was the key to the success of the tea ceremony. If it was a tender shoot, it naturally needed to use boiling water with a lower degree. It was to avoid damaging the leaves and spoiling the taste. However, the tea today was aged pui. Therefore, the water needed to be boiled 3 times. It was also recorded in the classic of tea that when the water was boiled 3 times, the tea had to be brewed. If it was boiled any longer, the water would turn old and become inedible. Qin Etienne poured the water from the bronze kettle into a cup to rinse it. This was called a teacup. If the teacup was cooled, the tea wouldn't float. There was a small teapot on the tea table in front of her. However, Qin Etienne didn't pour the water from the bronze kettle into the small teapot, because she knew that the water would come into contact with the air one more time after the water was poured. Changing the utensils meant that the tea might be mixed with the air one more time. The temperature and quality of the water would change slightly. Her slender hands were holding an ancient bronze kettle that weighed more than 10 kilograms. This scene was strange and beautiful at the same time. The most amazing thing was that when she held the kettle with one hand and poured the boiling water into the cup, not a single drop spilled out. This alone wasn't something an ordinary person could do. According to Fang Yan's plan, Qin Etienne should wait for a while. They waited for the contestants from the Wuren investigation team to brew the tea. Everyone tasted the tea and praised it. Only then did Qin Yi perform the tea ceremony and serve the tea she had brewed with great care to everyone. Just smelling the fragrance was enough to intoxicate them. When he drank it in one gulp, he felt that this tea could only be found in the heavens and rarely seen in the mortal world. Thus, Qin Etienne was the winner of the tea contest. She suppressed it first and then raised it, so that everyone's mood soared from the bottom to the peak. First, she made everyone anxious, then gave them a surprise. In this case, this surprise was even more memorable. In any competition, the second competition, the first cup, and then the competition. After drinking the tea of the later generations, do you still remember the taste of the previous cup of tea? Unless the taste of the 2 cups of tea was very different, but if they were of the same standard, then the second cup of tea would definitely be more advantageous. However, Qin Etienne clearly did not appreciate Fang Yan's efforts. She did not play according to Fang Yan's plan. She didn't wait for her opponent. After the water boiled, she cleaned the utensils, warmed the water, and poured the cups. This series of actions was smooth and pleasing to the eye. Then she put the tea cake on a piece of white silk, broke it into pieces, and removed all the coarse leaves and foam. Only then did she put the tea leaves into the pot. She put it carefully and must not let the tea leaves block the mouth of the pot. She poured the tea into the copper pot. After shaking it 3 times, she immediately poured the tea out. This was called washing tea. After washing the tea could be brewed. Brewing tea was the most important step. She must not go straight to the center of the pot. First, one corner and then the other corners. The spout of the copper pot was raised, strictly following the principle of high rush and low sprinkle. The high rush could make the boiling water hit the tea leaves forcefully, so that the fragrance and tea essence of the tea would evaporate faster. The tannins could not be dissolved in time, so the tea was sweet but not astringent. The water must be filled. Whether the teapot was 3 mountains together showed the skill. Qin Etienne looked relaxed, but her eyes were serious. The tea quickly filled the teapot. The foam floated, but there was no spill. He had the demeanor of a grandmaster. After completing this tedious but necessary process, he covered the pot with the lid and poured boiling water over it. It was called the pouring pot. After the cup was heated, the tea could be poured for the guests. Qin Etienne only poured 4 cups of tea from the pot. He waved his long sleeve and said, "Please." Lu Chaoga came over, picked up a cup of tea and tasted it carefully. Matsushima also came over, picked up the second cup of tea, and looked at the color of the tea. Duan Yujun sighed, walked to Lu Chaoga, bowed deeply, and then carefully picked up the 3rd cup of tea. Qin Etienne picked up the 4th cup of tea and took the initiative to give it to Fang Yan. He said with a smile, "Fang Yan, this cup of tea is for you." Du. Fang Yan pretended to be angry, but he was overjoyed. "Look, there are only 4 cups of tea." Except for the 3 judges, Qin Etienne didn't give it to anyone else. He didn't give it to the vice principal, the dean, or the leader of the Chinese team, but he just gave it to him. What kind of behavior was this? Respect for teachers. What did this mean? It meant that he was a qualified and excellent teacher who was respected by his students. Fang Yan took the tea, tasted it carefully, and said, "Good tea." Qin Etienne finished his tea ceremony, and the tea was already in his hand. Therefore, the 3 judges naturally had to give their evaluation. After Lu Chaoga finished the cup of tea, she carefully felt the sweet and moist taste in her throat, and said first, "I don't know much about tea. But I still know it's good tea. Good water, and good tea ceremony. It's amazing." Matsushima held the tea, smelled the fragrance, and then observed the color. Then he tasted it and said, "The color is green and white, and the soup is fine. It's an excellent tea." The color of the tea was white, and the green was better than the yellow. And the soup needed to be thin and well-proportioned, like cold porridge noodles. If one could bite on the edge of the cup and stay there for a long time, the effect would be the best. It was called biting cup. Matsushima also liked to drink tea, and she had done some research on the tea ceremony. It was also because of this that she knew how perfect and profound the girl in front of her was in the tea ceremony. Without more than 10 years of immersion, it would be impossible for her to reach this level, right? Duan Yujun only drank half of the tea in his hand, and he hesitated to drink the other half. He praised, "The tea immortal has returned. The tea immortal has returned. After seeing this tea ceremony today, I will never compete in tea with others again. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed." While everyone was appraising the tea brewed by Qin Etienne, Chiba Kori's tea ceremony had just reached the high infusion, low infusion part of the tea ceremony. Her face was expressionless, and her heart was as still as water. She only focused on her own actions, completely unaffected by external factors. Even when Qin Etienne brought the tea to Fang Yan, she did not divert her attention. It was as if everything around her had nothing to do with her. The heart is the tea, and the tea is the heart. The heart is the tea, and the tea is the heart. 4 teacups were placed on each tea tray, and Chiba Kori only chose one to heat the tea. After that, she poured the tea for the guests. Chiba Kori picked up the only cup of tea before her and walked toward Qin Etienne. She said, "This cup of tea represents my respect. Please be sure to accept it." Qin Etienne looked at Chiba Kori with a thoughtful expression. Only now did he truly begin to respect this Japanese girl. "Chiba Kori, hurry up and give a cup to each of the judges," Saburo Fujino urged. "What is wrong with this child? The judges have yet to drink their tea. How can she give tea to her opponent first? Besides, the judges have never tasted your tea. How can they know how beautiful your tea is?" Chiba Kori did not reply to Saburo Fujino's question. Her beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at Qin Etienne, who was a head taller than her. Qin Etienne picked up the cup of tea and carefully tasted it. The first sip was shallow, the second sip was deep, and the third sip was straight down. He looked at Chiba Kori and said in a soft voice, "Good tea." "Thank you." Chiba Kori's taut face immediately relaxed. She gave a 90-degree bow toward Qin Etienne and said gratefully, "Thank you." Saburo Fujino could not be bothered to maintain his composure. He quickly ran toward Chiba Kori and grabbed her shoulder. He shouted, "Chiba Kori, What are you doing? Do you know what you are doing? How can you do this? How can you give up? Do you know that you are not only giving up on yourself, you are also giving up on us, the pride of our Wu Ren and the face of Japan? How can you give up? Chiba Kaori turned to look at Saburo Fujino. There was a sweet smile on her face as she said, Sensei Fujino, I lost. I lost my mind, I lost my aura, and I lost my confidence. She is perfect. Her performance was impeccable. I thought that as long as I waited a little longer, I would be able to find a flaw. However, from the beginning to the end, she did not give me a single chance. Chiba Kaori had also thought that Chin Igen would wait. Chin Etienne was waiting for her to brew a good tea. Only then would she surpass her. She thought that Chin Etienne would do that. Isn't that what people think? Her actions lagged behind Chin Etienne. Part of it was because she had to boil the tea again, but it was also because of the knot in her heart. She wanted to be the final victor. Why did she think that? Why did she do that? At the end of the day, it was because she did not have enough confidence in herself. She did not have confidence in herself. She did not have confidence in her tea. How could a tea that lacked spirit, energy, and spirit win against someone else? However, Chin did not do that. She did not fight or wait. She was simple and direct. She did what she wanted regardless of the consequences. She disdained scheming and did not want to use overt schemes. She only wanted to be herself. She did her best. She did her best. She did her best. She was Chin Etienne. She believed that she would definitely win. Such an opponent was able to easily subdue her. He was worthy of her respect. Although Chiba Kaori had a smile on her face, there were tears in the corner of her eyes. Sensei, please let me admit defeat, Chiba Kaori said with a choked voice. At least you will look more dignified this way. Chapter 78. There was a type of opponent that deserved respect even if they lost. Chiba Care was one of them. Looking at Chiba Care's tear-stained face, Chin Etienne could not help but laugh. She stretched out her hand and looked at Chiba Care, saying, From today onwards, we are friends. She spoke in Japanese, so Chiba Care did not need an interpreter to understand her words. Chiba Care stared at Chin Etienne with wide eyes, a look of incomprehension on her face. Are you not willing? Chin Etienne asked. Not everyone can be my friend. I am willing. Chiba Care quickly stretched out her hand and shook Chin Etienne's. It is my honor. Clap, clap, clap. Matsushima Ki was the first to applaud. Lu Chaoga, Fang Yen, the Wu Ren inspection team, and the teachers and students of Rosefinch Secondary also applauded. Matsushima Ki walked to Chiba Care and gently hugged her in her arms, saying, Ki, you did well. Very well. In our hearts, you did not lose. You had the courage to admit your shortcomings. This makes us happier than winning this tea competition. Thank you, Sensei, Chiba Care said gratefully. Her choice was recognized, and her personality was still loved and respected. Her teacher and compatriot did not blame or resent her. Chiba Care was very happy. No need to thank me. Your performance was too good, Matsushima Ki said with a smile. She took out a handkerchief and handed it to Chiba-ku, saying, Wipe your tears. The Chiba-ku I know is not a student who likes to cry. Chiba Care took the handkerchief and wiped her tears. Matsushima Ki turned to Saburo Fujino and said, Sensei Fujino, Chiba Care did her best, didn't she? Yes, Saburo Fujino said with his head lowered, feeling very depressed. In the first tea competition, he had deliberately hidden his nuclear weapon, thinking that he would win for sure. He did not expect Rosefinch to also use a nuclear weapon. Wu Ren's side used a guided missile, while Rosefinch's side used an atomic bomb. This was too much. So, please maintain your manners, okay? Matsushima Ki did not let go of Saburo Fujino that easily. With a sharp look in his eyes, he said, You should know that you represent the pride of Takahito and the face of Japan. Yes. I understand. Saburo Fujino apologized profusely. I was too excited. Matsushima Nori also knew that berating his own team members in front of outsiders would make them look down on him. Even if he was dissatisfied, he could only hide his emotions in his heart. She walked in front of Lu Chaoga and said, Wu Ren lost the first tea ceremony competition. I'm sincerely convinced. Friendship first, competition second. Lu Chaoga comforted him in a soft voice. At this time, she was too embarrassed to smile too obviously, although she was very happy in her heart. Then, shall we proceed to the second round of the competition? Matsushima Nori said. I hope Wu Ren can win the next match. No problem, Lu Chaoga said. I'm looking forward to Wu Ren's performance. After the tea ceremony was over, there was no need for Qin Etian to stay any longer. She waved at Fang Yen and said, Fang Yen, help me down. Fang Yen quickly ran in front of Qin Etian and whispered, There are so many people here, give me some face, all right. Qin Etian was very easy to talk to. Fang Yen, help me down. Can you call me teacher? Impossible. Fang Yen helped Qin Etian down the stairs. After standing in front of the tea house for less than 2 minutes, the black Rolls-Royce Phantom stopped in front of them. This time, Fang Yen did not wait for the little old man to get out of the car. He rushed over and opened the rear door. Fang Yen said to Qin Etian, Thank you for your hard work today. Go back and have a good rest. Qin Etian looked at Fang Yen with a smile and said, Fang Yen, do you want me to leave as soon as possible? How is that possible? Fang Yen looked like he was wronged. Do you know how heartless you are to say this? You are my benefactor. You helped me win the tea ceremony competition. You don't know how grateful I am to you now. We, the people of Wulin, pay attention to a drop of kindness from others. How could I treat my benefactor like this? Really? Then how are you going to repay me? Qin Etian asked calmly. Haven't I already repaid you? Fang Yen said. When did you repay me? I gave you a bucket of water, Fang Yen said. In all honesty, he took a bucket of spring water from Tiger Mountain from his grandfather's house. He was not willing to drink it. He gave all of it to Qin Etian. A drop of water's kindness should be repaid with a bucket of water. Wasn't that enough? Qin Etian squinted his eyes and smiled. He said, Fang Yen, you are so cute. Fang Yen thought about it again and again. He still did not think that this sentence was a compliment. Qin Etian reached out to Fang Yen and said, Give me the phone. Why do you want my phone? Fang Yen felt very strange. Why did all the girls he knew like to borrow his phone? Jiang Qin was like this, Yuan Lin was like this. Now even Qin Etian was like this. Give it to me, Qin Etian said. Fang Yen had no choice but to take out his mobile phone from his pocket and hand it over. Qin Etian turned on the camera of Fang Yan's mobile phone, then put his head close to Fang Yan's shoulder and pressed the shutter. Fang Yan was shocked and said, What do you want to do? Don't think that I will be responsible for you just because you have something on me. Anyway, I didn't do anything. I am innocent and have a clear conscience. Why are you so excited? Qin Etian asked strangely. She threw Fang Yan's mobile phone back and said, It's rare for me to wear a traditional Chinese costume. I accompanied you to take 2 photos for you to show off on Weibo. What does it have to do with your innocence? I see. Fang Yen clenched the phone and was relieved. Ever since those reporters had gotten their hands on a photo of him dancing with Jiang Qin, he had been on tenterhooks. When he saw girls taking the initiative to take photos, he was worried that they were up to no good. What do you think it is? Qin Etian said contemptuously. Fang Yen, put away your wretched thoughts. I warn you, don't scold me. Or what? I will make you fail the Chinese exam. Fang Yen threatened. Idiot. You scold me again. Qin Etian sneered and lifted her skirt to get into the luxury car. Although the little old man sitting in the passenger seat did not have the opportunity to help Qin Etian open the door, he still got out and stood respectfully on the side. After Qin Etian got in the car, he helped close the rear door. Then he smiled at Fang Yen and said, Goodbye, Mr. Fang. Goodbye, old man. Fang Yen said with relief. He thought that not everyone was as rude as Qin Etian. After the car drove away, Fang Yen was still standing in the same place, waving. He thought, it's just a tea contest. Why did he rent such a beautiful car? How much would it cost? Fang Yen returned to the box in Cool Breeze Pavilion. the second round of the calligraphy competition was about to begin. Although Cool Breeze Tea House was a tea house, it had a large desk and 4 treasures of the study specially for scholars. As long as they were guests in the tea house, they could do whatever they wanted. Therefore, there was no need to look for another place for the calligraphy competition. It could be held directly in the tea house. The first round had a bad start, so Saburo Fujino kept a low profile. He walked in front of Fang Yen and said with a blank face, "How will the competition be conducted?" "Both contestants will write a piece of calligraphy. Then we will evaluate it," Fang Yen said. Saburo Fujino sneered and said, "If one side writes Wuxia calligraphy and the other side writes Japanese calligraphy, how will they compare?" Fang Yen also laughed and said, "Mr. Fujino seems to be a layman for asking this question. As long as there is strength in the brush, any word written will be beautiful. Even if it is a circle, it will be more beautiful than others. Could it be that a person's Wuxia calligraphy is beautiful, but the English alphabet is not beautiful? It will still be beautiful." Easy for you to say. The art of calligraphy is broad and profound. Different languages, different contents, different styles. Naturally, the effect will be different. Saburo Fujino did not agree with Fang Yan's point of view and said, "We should unify the language and the content. That way, it will be more convenient to compete and determine the winner. Isn't it better for everyone to write what they are good at? Our contestant will naturally write Wuxia calligraphy, and your representative can also write Wuxia calligraphy. In any case, didn't you all start from practicing Wuxia calligraphy? Ridiculous." Saburo Fujino said mockingly, "Looking at the sky from the bottom of a well, that's probably what people like you are, right? Without investigation, you have no right to speak. Otherwise, don't open your mouth and be laughed at. My East Asian calligraphy is unique. What does it have to do with your Wuxia calligraphy?" Calligraphy originated from Wuxia and gradually spread to the various countries in the Han culture circle. The changes in the calligraphy of Wuxia's dynasties continued to have a comprehensive and profound impact on East Asian calligraphy. It was only during the later part of the Heian period that East Asians' unique pseudonymous calligraphy rose, forming the auspicious system that is different from Wuxia's calligraphy. However, in my opinion, the auspicious system is still a slight change on the basis of Wuxia's calligraphy. Some things can be said to be borrowed or plagiarized. The key is to look at the relationship between the two parties. Am I right? Fang Yen looked at Saburo Fujino and said, "If you try to please me from time to time, I can also say that you are using it as a reference. If you always use such a cynical attitude to talk to me, I will scold you for plagiarism. I am a man with very fragile emotions. Just now, I was hit by someone. So, do not offend me." Fang Yen grinned and said, "You see, you offended me yesterday and lost the first tea ceremony competition, right? You deserve it." Chapter 79. After a long and unfriendly discussion between Fang Yen and Saburo Fujino, they finally decided on the general rules for the calligraphy competition. First, there was no limit to the language. Second, there was no limit to the content. Third, there was no limit to the style of the calligraphy. Yes, you can write a long poem, or you can write a single word. As long as it was something you were most proficient in, you could participate in the competition. Calligraphy had its own characteristics. Some people's every word was very beautiful, while some people only learned a single word for decades, but that one word was the essence of calligraphy. Could it be that a calligrapher who wrote a single word was not a calligrapher? Obviously not. Today, they were only competing in calligraphy. Therefore, a long piece was calligraphy, and a short piece was calligraphy. A sentence was calligraphy, and a word was calligraphy. The representative from Warren High School was a boy named Ueno Dashion. He was short and had an honest face. He looked more mature than the other students. He had a mustache on his upper lip that did not match the image of a high school student. Fang Yen paid special attention to this boy's hands. His hands were always clasped together and rarely moved. Steady hands, steady words. Steadiness was the foundation of writing a good piece of calligraphy. It did not matter if you were pursuing structure or interest. Steadiness was the priority. Only then would the spirit not dissipate. The representative from Rosefinch Secondary was not Huang Haoren. Instead, it was a tall and thin boy named Xiao Pinqing. The boy was about 1.7 meters tall, but he didn't have much flesh on his body. His clothes were empty underneath. If he didn't wear clothes, he would look like a character in the extremely popular Legend of Mir game. Skeleton Elf. Seeing the two contestants standing in front of the table, many people immediately laughed. The appearance of these two people is really unique. Isn't this the real-life version of the two generals Hang and Ha? If the flesh on their bodies were evenly distributed, they could be considered handsome men. Fang Yan also noticed this situation. He thought to himself, in the movies and TV shows, those with beautiful handwriting were also good-looking. In the bamboo forest, under the plum tree, or in the attic in a world of ice and snow, a handsome man dressed in white stood in front of a stone table. At this moment, the sound of the pipa was playing. The man's brush was dyed in ink, and his brush was like a swimming dragon. The sound of the pipa was urgent, and the man's speed increased. When the pipa stopped playing, the man raised his wrist to finish. The environment was elegant, the artistic conception was refined, and the pipa was embellished. On top of that, he was an elegant and graceful young master. Women would be dazzled by him and would love to marry him. Even men would want to rush up and stab him with a knife and scold him for being so pretentious. However, based on what Fang Yan had seen and heard, most of the artists in reality were slovenly. Even if there were some good-looking ones, their scores would be greatly reduced due to their ink-stained clothes or long ungroomed hair and beards. Fang Yan felt that he should be excluded. Unfortunately, he was not qualified to participate in this calligraphy competition. Of course, the students were slightly better off. Although Ueno Nobita and Xiao Pinqing both looked very special, they looked very clean and tidy in their school uniforms. The judges for the calligraphy competition were still Lu Chaoga, Nori Matsushima, and Duan Yujun. Duan Yujun gently knocked on the wooden fish in his hand and shouted, "Begin!" After saying that, Ueno Nobita and Xiao Pinqing did not start writing. They were both grinding the ink, and at the same time, their eyes were sizing up the white paper in front of them, as if there were some mysterious treasures hidden on the white paper. Ueno Nobita took the lead and dipped the brush in ink. With the tip of the brush, he wrote on the paper, swallowed the treasured sword and abandoned the famous bow, only to watch this breeze. Because Ueno Nobita had written in Japanese, Fang Yan could not understand what this sentence meant. However, from the structure of the words, it could be seen that he had used the famous Japanese style of writing. This was also the style that Fang Yan had said was self-created in Japan. The brushwork was elegant and the density was just right. The words were connected in a line, like a black landscape painting blooming on the white paper. He has reached a higher level, Fang Yan thought to himself. Even if the other party was a student from the Warren inspection team, even if this person was his current opponent, Fang Yan was still willing to give him such a high evaluation. Xiao Pinqing was still grinding the ink, as if the ink stone could not be melted. Bang, bang, bang. Duan Yujun gently knocked on the wooden fish in his hand. When the wooden fish struck 60 times, the time limit for this round of the competition was over. At the beginning, everyone was still calm. However, when the wooden fish struck more than 30 times and Ueno Nobita was the first to submit his words, Xiao Pinqing still did not move. The students of Class 9 were a little anxious. They looked at Xiao Pinqing anxiously. However, as they were worried that they would disturb Xiao Pinqing's thoughts, no one said anything to urge Xiao Pinqing to move faster. When the wooden fish struck 46 times, Xiao Pinqing finally dipped the brush in ink. Filial piety. He wrote a big filial piety on the white paper in front of him, and it was only one word. He placed the brush in the ink box. His forehead was dripping with sweat, as if he had just run 3 kilometers. He was using the Wei tablet. The strokes were strict, simple, and lively. It was plump and not lacking in rigidity. Good. Fang Yan said good 3 times in a row. Fang Yan also learned calligraphy. To put it bluntly, he was number 1 in calligraphy today at the Cool Breeze Tea House. It was because he learned and studied calligraphy that he could understand the value and brilliance of the word filial piety. This had nothing to do with the teacher-student relationship or the national righteousness. It was only related to the personal feelings of the person who loved calligraphy and the pursuit of art. Just like how a woman would react when she saw a beautiful dress, just like how a man would react when he saw a Ferrari, just like how a foodie would react when he saw the Manchu Han Imperial Feast. When a person saw something unimaginable in his favorite field, he would exclaim in admiration from the bottom of his heart, just like Fang Yen. The Wei tablet was mainly used in the fields of steel carvings, epitaphs, statue inscriptions, and cliff carvings. For generations, Xiao Pinqing's ancestors made a living by polishing tombstones. Xiao Pinqing's family did not have many things, but they had a lot of stones. Since he was very young, his grandfather, his father, and his brother would polish the big stones into square or arched slabs in front of him. Then, they would inscribe the names of their filial sons, grandsons, son-in-law, and nephews on the tombstones according to the list provided by the main family. Xiao Pinqing had been interested in these big stones since he was very young, either because of a long period of nurturing or because it was hereditary. When he first learned to write, his grandfather threw him a small chisel and a small awl and asked him to hammer out the words he knew on the stones. Because he had been polishing stones since he was young, Xiao Pinqing's hands were very steady. This also nurtured his personality of doing things without restraint and writing one stroke at a time. After years of practice, his Wei tablet had become famous far and wide. In the beginning, a customer came to ask his grandfather, Xiao Chengfa, to carve words. Later, the customer asked his father, Xiao Desui, to carve words. Later, the customer only asked Xiao Pinqing to carve words. As long as Xiao Pinqing carved words, the customer was willing to pay double the price. The first time Fang Yen discovered Xiao Pinqing's specialty was when he asked his students to imitate "Farewell Again, Cambridge," to write a poem for him. Xiao Pinqing's poem was not worth mentioning, but his words made Fang Yen feel stunned. He had never thought that he could find such a beautiful person among the students. He immediately asked Huang Haoren to find Xiao Pinqing and dragged him along the tree-lined path on campus for more than 10 minutes. He asked all kinds of questions like a fanatical fan and finally understood the special reason for Xiao Pinqing's success. Fang Yen encouraged Xiao Pinqing to continue to work hard and find more inscriptions to study, but to avoid imitating. Because Xiao Pinqing's words were now unique, if he blindly learned the advantages of others, he might lose his own essence. The reason why he asked Xiao Pinqing to study the inscriptions was that he hoped to broaden his horizons and let him have a deeper and more mature understanding of his own words. Xiao Pinqing repeatedly said yes, very happy with Fang Yan's recognition and praise. Later, he asked Fang Yan many times about calligraphy knowledge, and Fang Yan also told him everything he knew. He even went to his grandfather's house to get the imitation version of Yuanwei's epitaph for Xiao Pinqing to appreciate. Xiao Pinqing had written the word filial piety hundreds of thousands of times. He had personally carved it on the tombstone no less than 1,000 times. Filial piety, this was the tradition of Huaxia, giving people a sense of obedience. No one could defy it. However, filial piety also needed to know how to be flexible, to think of the elderly and think of the elderly's needs. This was not just a word, but a picture of filial piety. Therefore, Fang Yen could not help but say the word good 3 times. Saburo Fujino was very dissatisfied with Fang Yan's behavior and said, "Teacher Fang Yen, this is a kind of cheating behavior and is suspected of misleading the judges. If you do something out of line again, the judges will judge our side as the winner." Even Matsushima was very dissatisfied with Fang Yan's performance. He frowned and said to Lu Chaoga, who was next to him, "Isn't the teacher's performance a little too intense?" What he meant was that Fang Yan was just putting on an act. Wasn't it just one word? Was there a need to be so excited? Fang Yan apologized and said embarrassedly, I'm sorry. I can't help it. I really can't help it. The word is right in front of you. You can judge it freely. From now on, I won't speak anymore." Saburo Fujino sneered and said, "Do you still need to judge? It's already clear." Ueno Daxio's words were smooth like flowing water. Every single word was a rare work of art. The most commendable thing was that his layout was reasonable and the ink was well proportioned. He could be called a master of his generation. Of course, Warren High School had the upper hand in this round. You only know how to write one word, and you have the nerve to call it calligraphy? Fang Yen was enraged. He cursed, "Bullshit. Don't you have any knowledge? Do you know the subtlety of calligraphy? Can't a single word be called calligraphy? Just this one word is enough to leave you guys behind." Saburo Fujino was dumbfounded. "Didn't you say you won't speak anymore? You liar." Chapter 80. Don't force me to be barbaric, because when I am barbaric, even I am afraid of myself. This sentence was the most suitable to describe Fang Yen. Although Fang Yen was a descendant of the Tai Chi family, he had always thought of himself as a cultured person due to the influence of his grandfather and mother. Drinking tea on a mountain peak, riding on a snowy night. Drinking wine in a bamboo forest, reading poems on a rainy day. This was what a cultured person should do. Beating and scolding was uncivilized and uncultured. But you can't bully me. Even a rabbit would bite when it was cornered, let alone a cultured person. Fang Yen was a master of calligraphy, at least he thought so. Although his calligraphy was not as divine as his grandfather's, Lu Gong's, it was still possible for him to reach the heavens. Ueno Nobita's calligraphy was very good. Judging from the layout and the thick ink, it was not a problem for him to reach the heavens. In other words, Fang Yen reluctantly agreed to put Ueno Nobita on the same level as him. But Xiao Pinqing's calligraphy was different. He had entered the attainment of divinity and was slightly better than him, but weaker than his grandfather's, Lu Gong's. When Xiao Pinqing asked Fang Yen for advice on calligraphy, Fang Yen only talked about the idea and not the technique. Because he knew very well that Xiao Pinqing was miles ahead of him in terms of calligraphy like Wei Bei. Especially when Xiao Pinqing wrote the word filial piety with great vigor. His spirit, and soul were all there. He already had the demeanor of a grandmaster. Fang Yen was ecstatic when he saw it and had the urge to eat the word. The novel A Bite of Tongue had whetted one's appetite, and the word good had also opened one's eyes. This word was written in his eyes, in his mouth, and in his heart. But in Saburo Fujino's mouth, it was said that Ueno Nobita was better. How could Fang Yen tolerate this? Fang Yen was so agitated that he cursed, causing everyone to look at each other. The Warren inspection team was the first to react. Their faces were filled with anger, and they looked like they were going to fight it out with Fang Yen. How can you curse? How uncultured? Did he curse? What was he scolding? Bullshit. This is too hateful. I want him to apologize. I apologize to Fujino-sensei. Matsushima Nori was really angry this time. She looked at Lu Chaoga with a displeased expression and said, "Principal Lu, I need an explanation. I really can't understand how your school treats us like this. Not only is this disrespect towards our people, but it has also involved personal attacks and insults." Lu Chaoga frowned slightly. She also felt that Fang Yen had gone too far by calling someone **T in public. Can't you just curse in secret? Moreover, just as Matsushima Ki had said, if she couldn't give an explanation, this matter would be really difficult to deal with. Warren Senior High School was a famous school in Japan. They formed a friendship school with Rosefinch Secondary. The cause of this incident was rather complicated and involved many famous people. If this incident wasn't resolved well, Warren's anger would not be appeased and they would cancel the friendship school with Rosefinch. Then, many people would be punished. At the very least, Lu Chaoga would have to bear the main responsibility. Moreover, if this matter was reported to the Japanese embassy, it could be used by people with ulterior motives. It could escalate to a higher and more serious level. These were all things that Lu Chaoga didn't want to see. Lu Chaoga walked in front of Fang Yen and said, "Sensei Fang Yen, you must give Mr. Fujino an explanation. You must obtain his forgiveness." Fang Yen looked confused. He looked at Saburo Fujino and said, "Mr. Fujino, do I need to give you an explanation? You insulted me." Saburo Fujino was so angry that he stomped his feet. He was a senior teacher at Warren Senior High School and a famous Japanese researcher of Wuxia culture. Japanese people respected teachers and cultured people very much. Even when the Japanese Prime Minister met him, he was very amiable. He had never been scolded like this in his life. "I still don't quite understand," Fang Yan said. "Which part of my words insulted you?" "You said I was farting. I am a researcher of Wuxia culture. Don't think that I don't understand the meaning of those two words." Seeing Fang Yan acting like a fool, Saburo Fujino became even more furious. "Yes, I said the two words farting," Fang Yan admitted. "Since that is the case, what else do you have to say?" "But I did not say that you were farting," Fang Yan said. "I am saying that someone was farting. Could it be that you didn't smell a foul stench just now? You are just being unreasonable. You were obviously talking about me. That fart just now was from you." "It was not me," Saburo Fujino said angrily. He hated being wrong the most. "If it was not you, then who was it?" "How would I know who it was?" Only after Saburo Fujino shouted did he realize that he had gone off topic. "I am saying that after you said the two words farting, you immediately started talking to me. Clearly, you are attacking me. You see, you misunderstood me again," Fang Yan said. "Mr. Fujino, you are a guest from afar. Our Wuxia is a country of etiquette. How could I possibly curse at someone? The matter is like this. Back then, I smelled a foul stench and thought that you were farting. However, I felt that it would be indecent to say such a thing. Additionally, it would embarrass you. Thus, I quickly changed the topic. Perhaps there is a problem with my ability to express myself. Additionally, the change in topic was not natural enough. That is why you misunderstood me. If that is the case, I sincerely apologize to you now." "I was not the one who did it," Saburo Fujino was on the verge of shouting. How could he not be able to explain such a thing? Fang Yan looked at Saburo with a stunned expression and said, "Even if that is the case, there is no need for you to be so agitated." Lu Chaoga stood by the side and watched with cold eyes. She thought to herself that this was not a bad way to resolve the issue. Fang Yan would certainly not be willing to apologize to Fang Yan. However, if he did not apologize and Fang Yan had indeed scolded someone, it would be hard to explain to the other side. Fortunately, the culture of Wuxia was extensive and profound. A single word could be interpreted in countless ways. Seeing that the two of them were unable to come to a conclusion after exchanging a few words, Fujino Saburo would only be at a disadvantage if they continued to argue. Thus, Fujino Saburo could only say, "Since both contestants have finished writing, let's have a proper evaluation." "That is what I am thinking as well," Lu Chaoga quickly followed up. To be able to resolve this issue, she was more than happy to do so. Matsushima Ki glanced at Fang Yan and said, "Teacher Fang Yan, since you understand calligraphy, then you should be the one to evaluate these two pieces of calligraphy." "How can I accept that? I am not one of the judges," Fang Yan said with a smile. "It is better for the judges to evaluate. You guys are the experts. You can evaluate it first. We will decide the final outcome," Matsushima Ki said. What he meant was that you can state your opinion. Whether you accept it or not, it is up to us. Since Principal Matsushima has invited me, then I will respectfully accept, Fang Yan said. He first walked to the front of Ueno Nobita's words and said very frankly, "I don't understand Japanese, so I don't understand what this sentence means. Who can translate it for me?" Swallowing the precious sword and abandoning the famous bow, only to watch the cool breeze, someone said aloud. Fang Yan read it and said, "Good words. Good words. We often say that a good horse needs a good saddle. In my eyes, Ueno Nobita's words are a good horse, and this sentence is a good saddle. Only by matching the words can the mood be more obvious. If he wrote, 'Ueno Nobita was here,' no matter how beautiful his words are, he will lose a lot of points. Isn't this the case?" Fang Yan's words were interesting, and everyone laughed. Only to watch the cool breeze, this sentence is very good. It gives people a feeling of giving up fame and fortune, forgetting the troubles of the secular world, and only listening to the wind and admiring the moon. Ueno Nobita's words are exquisite and elegant. Every stroke is connected into a line, like a crescent moon, a gust of wind. It makes people feel relaxed and happy. Ueno Nobita heard his classmate's translation and bowed slightly to Fang Yen to express his gratitude. When he was grinding the ink, he thought of this sentence and considered writing it as a crescent moon, a gust of wind. Fang Yen went straight to the heart and expressed his intention completely. He was indeed an expert in calligraphy. Fang Yen smiled at Ueno Nobita, looked at him and said, "However, this calligraphy has a fatal flaw. That is, it is too rouge. Ueno Nobita, you only focus on the form, but not the spirit. You only express the cool breeze, but what about the words swallowing the precious sword and abandoning the famous bow? Without the beginning, how can there be the end? Without the beginning, how can there be the end?" Ueno Nobita's eyes widened, and his face was full of shock. "If I'm not wrong, Ueno Nobita learned calligraphy from a female teacher, right?" Fang Yen asked. After listening to Fang Yan's words, Ueno Nobita nodded and then bowed 90 degrees to Fang Yen. He learned calligraphy from his mother, whose surname was Kono. She was the descendant of Kono Shirnin, one of the 3 geniuses who appeared in the calligraphy world when Toyotomi Hideyoshi unified the world in the Peach Mountain era. The world also called those 3 people the 3 strokes of Kuan Yin. Even the teachers and classmates at school didn't know who his mother was, and he had never mentioned it to anyone. However, Fang Yen, Huaxia's teacher, saw through it at a glance. Fang Yen helped Ueno Nobita up and said with a smile, "If it was that lady who wrote this calligraphy, I would give her a higher evaluation. And what I said about the excessive rouge is not a weakness, but an advantage. Because this is a woman's characteristic. However, Ueno Nobita can't do it. You are a man. If you deliberately imitate that teacher's writing style, you will make a fundamental mistake. There is a difference between men and women. Women can't learn men's boldness, and men can't write women's gentleness and exquisiteness. No matter how hard you try. Am I right? A word is worth 1,000 gold." Ueno Nobita bowed again, thanking Fang Yen for his selfless guidance. He finally found the shortcomings of his calligraphy, which had a profound impact on his future development. Chapter 81. Calligraphy was like Buddhism, it was about enlightenment. Ueno Nobita's calligraphy was indeed beautiful, but he could feel that he had reached a bottleneck. He had reached the end of the road, but he could not find any other way out. They either stood still or walked back the way they came. Ueno Nobita did not want to see either. Today, Fang Yan's words had awakened him from his confusion and allowed him to have a clear understanding of the path ahead of him. He had found an exit and could gallop on another road. Was this not the happiest thing? The 2 bows represented 2 completely different meanings. The first was a courtesy to thank Fang Yen for his praise. The second time was filled with sincere gratitude and respect. Every word was worth 1,000 taels of gold. Seeing Fang Yen conquer Ueno Nobita with just a few words, Saburo Fujino's heart broke. What was wrong with these students? Why did they just give up and surrender so easily? What did I teach you all? Have you forgotten the samurai spirit? He had already lost the first round of the tea ceremony competition. If he were to lose the second round of the calligraphy competition, how could he face his Japanese parents? Saburo Fujino did not care about Ueno Nobita's attitude towards Fang Yen and said, "Ueno Nobita's calligraphy is flawed, but is Rosefinch's student's calligraphy not flawed?" Matsushima Ki also spoke up, "That's right. Fang Yen sensei, you just commented on Ueno Nobita's calligraphy. Now, you should also comment on Rosefinch's student's filial piety." "Of course." Fang Yen nodded. To be honest, Xiao Pinqing wrote the word filial piety with the intention of using a trick, because this is indeed the best word he has ever written. Of course, this is the mentality of any contestant. Ueno Nobita wrote, "Swallow the sword and abandon the bow." Did he not have the intention of using a trick? In his heart, he would naturally feel that these were the few words he had written the best. Huaxia culture is broad and profound. Countless people were researching, countless people were learning and imitating. Fujino, sensei in front of us, was also a learner and researcher of Chinese culture. He studied poetry, songs, zither, chess, poetry, painting, the Book of Changes and the 8 trigrams. He studied everything he thought was worth studying. However, in my opinion, this research is only on the surface. It can't touch the core. What is the real culture of Wuxia? It was a traditional virtue that had been passed down for thousands of years. In 7 words, they were loyalty, filial piety, benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and trustworthiness. These things could not be seen, nor could they be heard, but they were deeply embedded in the blood and marrow of every Wuxia citizen. As long as people were alive, they were alive. When a person dies, there will be countless successors. Filial piety is the most important of all virtues. Filial piety is a word that understands the shape and sound. The shape of this character was very ingenious. The upper half was half of the character, Lao, while the lower half was the full character, Zi. The previous generation and the next generation merged into one. The son inherits the father, and the son can inherit his parents and follow his wishes. Fang Yan walked to the front of the bookshelf, pointed at Xiao Pinqing's calligraphy and said, "Let's look at the upper half of Xiao Pinqing's filial piety first. It is simple and unadorned, and the ink is vigorous. Doesn't it look like an old man with rich experience who dedicated his life to his children?" Hearing Fang Yan's words, everyone admired it seriously. They really saw something different in this character. Kindness, sincerity, dedication, selflessness, and sadness. Fang Yan pointed at the lower half of the character and said, "The old man is old, so he has a new son. Look at this upper half and the lower half, but only half of the character, Lao, is left. Where did the other half go? It was given to their children. Isn't that how parents are? The first half of their life is for themselves, and the second half is for their children. Just like the song, Where Has All Time Gone, sings, you're old before you can enjoy your youth. You've had children for a lifetime, and your mind is full of children's tears and laughter." Xiao Pinqing's Zi is vigorous and delicate, representing the prosperity of his son, and also representing the healthy growth of his son. The layout of this filial piety is grand, and the structure is clear. The ink is thick when it should be thick, and light when it should be light. The brush is heavy when it should be heavy, and light when it should be light. It has feelings, temperament, and structure. This is why I think Xiao Pinqing's calligraphy is better than Ueno Nobita's. "Thank you, Mr. Fang," Xiao Pinqing said gratefully. Fang Yan waved his hand, looked at Lu Chaoge, Matsushima Ji, and Duan Yujun and said, "Judges, I'm done with my comments. It's up to you to decide who is better and who is worse." Lu Chaoge and Matsushima Ji looked at each other. Lu Chaoge spoke first and said, "Principal Matsushima, you are the guest, so you should comment first." Matsushima Ji refused and said, "Mr. Duan should start first." Duan Yujun stood between the 2 writing tables, looked at Ueno Nobita's calligraphy, and then looked at Xiao Pinqing's calligraphy, looking hesitant. With so many people watching, the honest Duan Yujun was embarrassed to choose his family's calligraphy directly. "To be honest, both works are good," Duan Yujun said. "Both are good. It's much better than my handwriting." Everyone laughed and said, "Boss Duan, everyone knows that their calligraphy is better than yours. The key is whose calligraphy is better." "I choose filial piety," Duan Yujun said. "Not to mention anything else, this word makes me feel close." Can an unfilial person still be human? Clatter. The students of Rosefinch Secondary applauded. Now one of the judges had turned to Xiao Pinqing, and Xiao Pinqing's victory was in sight. Matsushima Ji asked Lu Chaoge to comment again, and Lu Chaoge said without hesitation, "I choose filial piety. I like the feeling of a father and son being connected. I sensed a very deep emotion from this piece of calligraphy." "This feeling?" Lu Chaoge looked sad and said, "It's been a long time since we last met." Duan Yujun chose Xiao Pinqing's filial piety, and Lu Chaoge also chose Xiao Pinqing's filial piety. No matter how Matsushima Ji voted, Xiao Pinqing was already the winner of this calligraphy competition. Of course, this also had something to do with the judging system. Because Duan Yujun and Lu Chaoge were both Huaxia's people, they would be biased towards the Rosefinch secondary contestants. It was human nature. Matsushima-ji sighed softly and did not speak. Ueno Nobita walked to Matsushima-ji and bowed deeply to him. Then he raised his head and said, "Teacher, please grant me a request." "What is it?" Matsushima-ji asked. "Give this vote to my opponent," Ueno Daxio said. "I can feel the feelings he has when he wrote this calligraphy. I focus on the form, and he takes both the spirit and the form into consideration. In terms of calligraphy cultivation, I am not as good as him." Matsushima-ji pondered for a long time, then patted Ueno Nobita on the shoulder and said, "Ueno Nobita, I promise you." "Thank you, teacher. I'm sorry. I'm not." Ueno Nobita smiled honestly. "Teacher, you can't imagine what I have gained from this trip to Wuxia. I can't wait to grind the ink and write. I can't wait to go back and tell my teacher, my mother, that I want to take a completely different path from her. She is herself, and I can't be her. I can only surpass her." "Good. Very good." Matsushima-ji also smiled happily. "Ueno Nobita, congratulations." "Thank you, teacher." Ueno Nobita bowed again. Matsushima-ji looked back at Lu Chaoga and said, "This vote is for filial piety." Clatter. The students all spontaneously applauded. Not only the students of Rosefinch Secondary, but even the teachers and students of Warren Secondary also applauded. In the second match, Rosefinch Secondary won again. It was lunchtime, and Duan Yujun insisted on inviting the teachers and students of both schools for lunch. This time, Lu Chaoga strongly refused, saying that she had already disturbed them today. The school would be responsible for the lunch, and the school had specially allocated funds to entertain the delegation of Warren. Both sides agreed that the third fencing match would be held at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. After lunch, the students of the delegation would return to the hotel to rest for a while. In the dessert shop at the entrance of the campus, Fang Yen and Tangqing sat opposite each other. Tangqing held a cup of iced lemon green tea in his hand, his eyes looking around without focus, looking very bored. "Student Tangqing, have you thought about it?" Fang Yen asked. "Teacher Fang Yen, I have answered you several times. I'm not going. I have no interest in that kind of thing," Tangqing said impatiently. "What's your reason for refusing?" "I'm not interested." "Why not?" "I don't like it." Student Tangqing, the tea ceremony, calligraphy, and fencing matches between us and the Warren delegation have attracted the attention of the entire class and even the entire school. Although friendship comes first, competition comes second, everyone hopes to win these 3 matches. Because everyone knows that winning or losing not only concerns the school's dignity, but also the dignity of our entire Wuxia. If we lose these 3 matches, will our Wuxia lose its dignity? Tangqing sneered. "Student Tangqing, I know you think this is a small matter, and you think that winning or losing doesn't matter. But I don't think so. We should do our best in any match. We can't easily give up any opportunity. We have to win, and we have to keep winning. We have to win our dignity, and we have to win our confidence. We have to win our own confidence, and we have to take away their confidence. I want them to have no chance of winning in every confrontation with us. I want them to be wary of us every time they fight us. The national defense of a country not only depends on the strength of the army, but also the invincible will and ambition of every Wuxia person." Fang Yen looked at Tangqing with sincere eyes and said, "Student Tangqing, come out. Come out and help me win this match, and help yourself win this match." Chapter 82. Tangqing was silent, staring at Fang Yen with a burning gaze. "If I don't agree, does that mean I'm not patriotic?" Tangqing asked. Fang Yen was taken aback and said, "I hope you can do this. It has nothing to do with patriotism or not." "In that case, I still won't agree," Tangqing said with a sneer. "Teacher Fang Yen, why should I agree? Why should I agree? You made me kneel to you in front of the whole class. You made me kneel to you in front of Qinitian. Now, just because of a few words you said, just because of your bluff, I have to stand up and work for you? When you did that, did you think about my feelings? Did you think about how I'll face the strange looks of the students in the future? Did you think about what kind of gossip I'll encounter in the future? What's more hateful is, did you think about how I'll pass the harsh scrutiny of Qin Etian? You can have whatever you want? You can do whatever you want? Everyone in the world has to revolve around you? Do you think you're the hero of a novel? Teacher Fang Yen, I'm not an idiot. I won't do it, I won't do it. No matter how extravagant your words are to make people's blood boil, I won't agree to it. I just want to see you lose. You can easily take away other people's dignity. Why can't others take away your dignity? Anyway, this bet is between you and that Japanese teacher. What does it have to do with us? Tangxing took a sip of the iced lemon tea, moistened his throat, and said, besides, aren't you very good at fighting? If you're so good, can you go by yourself? If you go, I guarantee that no one can beat you. Fang Yen nodded and said, that's true. If I go, who on their side will be a match for me? But I can't do that. My identity is a teacher. If I were to fight, even if I won, they wouldn't be convinced. They would even think that our school doesn't have any outstanding students. If there's really no other choice, they would only send a teacher to fight. I can bear this misunderstanding and humiliation, but I can't tolerate my students being belittled and belittled by them. Mr. Fang is really great. Tangcheng had a conflict with Fang Yen on the first day he entered class 9, so he had a grudge against him and was also on guard against him. Therefore, he didn't believe a single word that Fang Yen said. Besides, Fang Yen had already won 2 rounds in a row. If he won the 3rd round, wouldn't Qin Etian think that he was different? Tangxing was having a headache now. He didn't understand what kind of feelings Qin Etian had for Fang Yen. It was impossible to say that it was love. He knew that a girl like Qin Etian would not easily fall in love with any man. If that wasn't the case, why did she treat Fang Yen differently from others? Tangxing used to think that his competitors were students. He didn't expect that even teachers would be included. It's really tiring to have a girlfriend who is too outstanding, Tangxing thought in his heart. He felt like he didn't want to love anymore. Fang Yen waved his hand, looking carefree as if he had nothing to do with fame and fortune. It doesn't matter if I'm great or not. I'm just doing something that I can do. They sent a student to fight, and we can only send one student to fight. We not only have to win, but we also have to win them to be convinced. We have to convince them with force and then move them with virtue. Slapping them twice and making them think that we're good people? Don't think too much. I'm not talking about you. You're my student. How can I hurt you like this? You can refuse. It's your right. No one has the right to interfere. Fang Yen sighed softly and said, however, what you said just now made me understand some of my shortcomings in my work. I'm still too young. I don't have rich experience as a student. If I changed the solution at that time, would the effect be better? This is something that I need to reflect and improve. Tangxing looked at Fang Yen in surprise. This guy is so easy to talk to? Is he indirectly apologizing to me? Do you think an apology can buy people's hearts? Impossible. Tangxing said. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to apologize. I'm thinking if I slapped you twice on the spot that day, or if I directly knocked you down to the ground. Fang Yen. Tangxing shouted angrily. Is there anyone who begs people like this? Don't be angry. Let me finish. Fang Yen tried to persuade him. Isn't it better to be angry together? If I do that, you'll lose face and dignity. There won't be so many little girls around you anymore. The school hunk will no longer be you. Isn't that better? Fang Yen, don't go too far. Tangcheng clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. Fang Yen looked at Tangcheng's fists and said, Tangcheng, I can't fight the Japanese student, but can I hit you? You can't beat me at all. You know this better than anyone else. If you were me, what would you do when your own student takes the initiative to provoke you and humiliate you in front of everyone or do something even more miserable? Pretend as if nothing had happened. Before I made you kneel, even if I wanted to think so, you might not agree to do it, right? I don't do anything? Kneel when you say so? Let you slap my face when you say so? Have whatever you want? You can do whatever you want? Have everyone in the world revolve around you? Do you think you're the male lead in a novel? Tangxing was furious. Fang Yen actually dared to repeat his own words. This shameless plagiarist. There's a cause and there's an effect. Revenge must be taken. I'm a teacher and you're a student. I welcome people with a smile, but you want to show off your uniqueness as soon as you come in. This is something that no teacher can accept, right? If you hate me because of this, I can only say that your thinking is too immature. If you're really mature, you should work hard to learn and beat me up. Look, you can't argue with me, and you don't dare to beat me up? Someone like you has the nerve to be praised as the school hunk? If I were born 2 or 3 years later, what do you think would happen to you and Tangqing in Rosefinch Secondary? You'd just be a minion following behind me. As a teacher, I firmly oppose campus romance. The most important thing for a student is to learn. Of course, I know you may not be willing to listen to me. Qin Etian stood up and won the tea ceremony. Xiao Pinqing stood up and won the calligraphy competition. Tangqing, if others know your choice, what do you think they will think of you? Do you think it's shameful for me to ask you to kneel down in public? Fang Yen sneered. That's not it. Far from it. Soon you'll know what kind of behavior is the most shameful thing. I'm not trying to put a label on you, nor am I trying to oppress you with my power. Tangqing, I don't like you, and sometimes I even hate you. However, there's something I have to tell you. People living in this world must understand the true meaning of the phrase, a wise man's words are a fearful thing. This is my good intention, I hope you can accept it. After saying so much, let's review the first question. Tangqing, are you willing to stand up and accept the challenge? Tangqing's mouth was slightly open, unsure of how to answer the question. Fang Yan's fingers gently tapped the surface of the table twice and said, I've been sitting in front of you for a long time, but you've never offered to buy me a glass of fruit juice. I'm also too embarrassed to buy it myself. That would make me look like a failure as a teacher. Tangqing, in terms of respecting your teacher, you're really bad at it. I need to deduct your conduct points to remind you. After saying that, Fang Yen got up and left. Tangqing stared at the half-filled cup of iced lemon tea in his hand, dumbfounded. Due to the 2 losses in the morning, Saburo Fujino was no longer as arrogant when he saw Fang Yen. His attitude was also not as tough. He took the initiative to greet Fang Yen and said with a smile, Teacher Fang Yen, today's weather is quite good. Fang Yen raised his head and looked at the gloomy sky. He thought to himself that it might rain soon. Autumn in Flower City was a rainy season. Moreover, there were many showers. 1 minute, the sun was shining brightly, and in the blink of an eye, it would be raining cats and dogs. Naturally, Fang Yen did not reject Saburo's good intentions. He said, Indeed, today's weather is quite good. Friendship first, competition second. This trip to Wuxia has given us a rich harvest. I believe that through this series of exchange activities, we will be able to deepen the friendship between our 2 schools, allowing the students to promote each other and improve together. This will allow them to become useful talents for society and humanity as a whole. Isn't this the real purpose of us holding these exchange activities? Yes, that is the case. Fang Yen nodded his head. That is what we think as well. Then, the afternoon match. Should we cancel the afternoon match? Fang Yen asked. Of course, if Teacher Fujino strongly requests it, we have no objections. After all, we must respect the true thoughts of our guests. Besides, winning 2 matches in a row in the morning has already made us feel embarrassed. The leaders of the school and I have been hesitating. For this 3rd match, should we continue to win? If we were to do so, would it be a breach of etiquette? Etiquette and face, there are times when it is difficult to choose. However, Teacher Fujino's suggestion has solved our problem. So, I will go report this to the school leaders. Is that all? Chapter 83. Some people would make you fall in love with them at first sight. Some people would make you want to beat them up. Clearly, in Saburo Fujino's eyes, Fang Yen belonged to the latter category. Saburo Fujino had challenged Fang Yen during his class. Even though he had hidden his trump card, Fang Yen had still won 2 matches in a row. This caused him to lose face. His heart was filled with grievance and discomfort. What caused him to vomit blood was the fact that the students who lost the match were praising Huaxia's teachers and students. Be it Chibakuru or Ueno Nobuo, both of them had expressed their admiration for Huaxia's culture and spirit. They had also spoken highly of their opponents, saying that they had learned a lot from them. What kind of behavior was this? This was a slap to the face. He had just shouted out the slogan, Tang and Song cultures in Japan, and they had been conquered by Huaxia's culture. Do they still want to be compatriots? Saburo Fujino was a smart person. He knew that he could not go against the general trend. Since both his teachers and students had a favorable impression of Huaxia's culture and Rosefinch Secondary, it would not be appropriate for him to be the only one hostile towards them. That would only cause others to think that he was narrow-minded and an anomaly. He was prepared to change his battle strategy. He would treat his enemies with a gentle and friendly attitude. However, he would show no mercy during the match. Only the victor would have the right to make fun of others. Was that not the case? He had already made up his mind. After the experts he sent out had slaughtered Rosefinch's students until they were crying for their parents, he would go and have a talk with Fang Yen. His expression would surely be quite ugly, right? They had already lost 2 matches. They were hoping to win back some face in the 3rd match. How could they cancel the match? If they were to cancel the match, then they would have no chance at all. Additionally, others would say something like this: Wu Ren is afraid of Rosefinch Secondary's victory and no longer dares to continue the match. This result was even harder to accept than losing the 3rd match. This was Wu Ren's shame. It was also Saburo's shame. He would never allow such a thing to happen. Seeing Fang Yen turn around to report to the leader, Saburo Fujino grabbed his arm and said, Fang Yen, sensei. Fang, sensei, you misunderstood my words. I have no intention of canceling the match. I mean, when will our afternoon match begin? Where is the venue? Not canceling the match? Fang Yen turned to look at Saburo Fujino. Not canceling the match? Saburo Fujino turned to look at Saburo. Saburo Fujino suddenly realized something. A smile appeared on his face as he said, Could it be that teacher Fang Yen wants to cancel the competition? How is that possible? Fang Yen naturally had to deny it. I've already told you about our concerns. We don't want our 3 consecutive wins to affect the deep friendship between our 2 schools. Of course, this will also affect Wu Ren's confidence. As the host of this event, we have to think more comprehensively and in the long term. To what we do and do things we need to finish. Is that not the case? Saburo Fujino looked at Fang Yen and said with a smile, I have heard that Rosefinch does not have a tradition of practicing swordsmanship. Could it be that Sensei Fang Yen wants to invite an expert from outside to accept the challenge? If that is the case, then we will have to surrender. This is Huaxia. If you want to find 3 to 5 experts, it will not be an issue. Fang Yan's face turned serious and he said, Our Rosefinch does not have a tradition of practicing swordsmanship. However, that does not mean that our school does not have any experts. Sensei Fujino, you can insult me, but you cannot belittle my students. In view of your unkind words, I have decided to challenge you. Let's duel the 2 of us in the 3rd round of the fencing competition. I am just a scholar without the strength to even truss a chicken. However, the integrity of a scholar does not allow me to take even half a step back. Life or death is up to fate. I am willing to sign a blood contract with you. Listening to Fang Yan's words, Saburo Fujino's heart was slightly moved. Fang Yan was taller than him, but he was not as big as him. Additionally, he was someone who paid more attention to training himself and had learned a few moves of Taekwondo. If he could openly beat up Fang Yen in front of everyone, he would be able to vent his anger and his students would certainly be inspired. However, he quickly rejected this tempting idea. After 2 days of contact, he felt that Fang Yen was a very cunning fellow. For him to take the initiative to challenge him meant that he must have a plan in mind. If he were to agree to his proposal, wouldn't he be walking right into his trap? I'm not that stupid. Saburo Fujino thought to himself. He looked at Fang Yen with a straight face and said, This is just my personal concern. I do not have any intention of belittling Rosefinch's students. In my eyes, Rosefinch's students are very outstanding and lovable. I am afraid that some teachers would only covet the glory of victory and bring in experts from outside the school to participate in the competition. In this way, even if they were to win the competition, the students would be disappointed. Face projects will only harm themselves and others. Just say it, do you want to accept my challenge or not? Fang Yan said impatiently. I am a teacher. This kind of matter should naturally be handled by my students. I believe in them, just like how they are willing to believe in me, Saburo Fujino said. This is a show for the students. I will not snatch away the opportunity that belongs to them. Fang Yan looked at Saburo Fujino in surprise and said, I thought only our school's director Li Mingqiang would be able to say such high-sounding words. It turns out that Teacher Fujino is even better than Director Li. What did you say? Teacher Fujino, you understand what I mean, Fang Yan smiled. We are both language teachers. Our ability to understand words is deeper than others. Isn't that right? Saburo Fujino felt like hitting someone again. He said, there is no point in talking so much. Let's get ready for the competition. Our team members have already been chosen. What about your team members? They have already been chosen, Fang Yan said confidently. The kendo competition will be held in the school's taekwondo dojo. Like the art club, calligraphy club, literature club, and gaming club, this was a club established by several students who loved taekwondo. Later, as the number of students participating increased, the school opened a dojo specifically for the taekwondo club to provide training for the students. When the members of Wuren's delegation saw the logo of the taekwondo dojo, a strange expression appeared on their faces. Saburo Fujino glanced at Fang Yan and said with a smile, Teacher Fang Yan, could it be that the people of Wuxia are more committed to promoting the development of taekwondo? Wuxia preserves its own unique cultural characteristics and is also willing to accept some foreign cultures. As long as it is of good quality and beneficial to our citizens, we are happy to accept and promote it, Fang Yan said in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. Regardless of what kind of culture it is, it will only become a part of our Wuxia country and cannot replace the mainstream culture. Some people like to eat steak and spaghetti, but have you seen any Wuxia family that eats steak and spaghetti every day? Rice, steamed buns, stir-fried vegetables, and stew are our common dishes. We have such confidence. Saburo Fujino smiled and no longer said anything. He knew that he was no match for Fang Yan when it came to bickering. The taekwondo dojo was not closed to outsiders due to the competition today. Therefore, many students in Taoist attire could be seen practicing inside. Saburo Fujino pursed his lips when he saw the moves of the students and did not say anything. The president of the taekwondo club, Luo Yi, walked over and took the initiative to greet Lu Chaoga. He smiled and said, Principal Lu, the venue has been prepared. You can start at any time. Luo Yi was a high school student and an influential figure in the school. He was very familiar with some of the school's leaders and teachers. Her attitude towards Lu Xiaoga was one of respect and intimacy, unlike the other students who were afraid and reserved. Lu Xiaoga nodded and said, Thank you for your hard work. Principal Lu, you are too polite. We are also a part of Rosefinch Secondary and should do our part for the school. Luo Yi glanced at the Wuren inspection team and thought to himself, I wonder if there are any experts on their side. I hope that the competition will not be too disappointing. Chiba Haomu, step forward. Saburo Fujino shouted in Japanese. As soon as he finished speaking, a short boy wearing a Japanese school uniform walked out from the crowd. The boy was about 1.6 meters tall. When he walked, his body swayed from side to side. His posture looked a little strange, but his steps were light and natural. His footsteps were light and quick, and his white cloth shoes made almost no sound when he stepped on the wooden floor. The boy had a cute baby face and the shape of his face was somewhat similar to Chiba Haomu's. Fang Yan looked at Chiba Haomu's expression and noticed that when she looked at Chiba Haomu, there was a gentle smile on her face. They should be siblings, Fang Yan guessed. Chiba Haomu noticed Fang Yan's gaze and nodded at him with a smile. He did not know if it was just a greeting or an affirmation that his guess was correct. Fang Yan smiled and quickly turned his head away. If someone with ulterior motives saw this, They would think that he was seducing a Japanese student. Chiba Haomu's brother naturally has the surname Chiba as well, Fang Yen thought to himself. He felt that the surname was somewhat familiar, as if he had heard it somewhere before. North Star One Blade Style? These shiny words suddenly popped up in Fang Yan's mind. North Star One Blade Style was a very popular swordsmanship school in Japan during the late Edo period. Its founder was Chiba Shusata, the first master of the Chiba family and the founder of North Star One Blade Style. North Star One Blade Style set up the Black Martial Dojo in Nyanbashi, Edo. Together with Kishin Mishiryu's Scholar Gakuen Dojo and Shin Noryu's Warrior Training Dojo, they were known as the three great dojos of Edo. Didn't that old drunkard in his family specifically mention North Star One Blade Style when he was explaining the world of swordsmanship? Their founder's surname was Chiba. So, what relationship did Chiba Haomu and her brother have with the Chiba family? Chapter 84. Fang Yan's guess was right. Chiba Karu and Chiba Haomu were really siblings, and they were indeed the descendants of Chiba Josua. The North Star Ito-ryu was a famous Japanese sword technique that had been passed down for hundreds of years. As a girl, Chiba Kaori was more inclined to enjoy the visual and sensory aspects of the tea ceremony. Chiba Takeshi was a male descendant of the Chiba family. He had been trained by the family in swordsmanship and physical fitness since he was young. Both of them studied at Warren High School, a famous private school in Japan. Both of them were well-known figures in the school. Chiba Kaori was gentle, beautiful, and had an outstanding temperament. She was also the president of the school's tea ceremony club. She was the undisputed goddess of the school. Her status in Warren Senior High School was similar to that of Chin Etienne in Rosefinch. As for Chiba Haomu, he was adorable and skilled in swordsmanship. He was very popular with both boys and girls, and he had a group of hardcore supporters. This time, Saburo Fujino had taken the initiative to issue a challenge. Additionally, he had declared that he wanted to compete with Fang Yen in the way of tea, calligraphy, and fencing. Truth be told, he had dug a big hole for Fang Yen. Saburo Fujino had a clear understanding of the strength of his team members. They had a world-class tea master, a calligraphy master, and a kendo expert. If they were to compete in these three areas, wouldn't they be able to win 3 out of 3 matches? They would be able to trample Huaxia's team into the mud, leaving not even their bones behind. He did not guess the beginning correctly, nor could he guess the ending correctly. Chiba Kaori, whom he had high hopes for, had lost. Ueno Nobita had also lost. Now, he had placed all his hopes on Chiba Haomu. Teacher. Chiba Takeshi stood before Saburo Fujino. Saburo Fujino patted Chiba Haomu's shoulder. He wanted to say something, but there was an inexplicable sadness in his heart. After a long while, he calmed down a little and said in a deep voice, "Please win." Chiba Haomu nodded with a smile and said, "I understand, teacher." Chiba Haomu understood. All the members of the Wu Ren inspection team understood. They had already lost 2 rounds. If they lost the last round as well, then they would be shaved bald by Huaxia. This was a great humiliation. Hence, the other students of Wu Ren University gathered around them. Good martial arts, good luck. Good fight. You must win. Xianxia is good at martial arts. We believe in you. Chiba Sun walked up to Chiba Haomu and smiled silently. Just do your best. No, sister, I want to win. Chiba Haomu also smiled. His smile was as bright as the sun. What an adorable boy. Win back what you lost. The smile on Chiba Kaori's face gradually faded. She seriously looked into Chiba Haomu's eyes and said, "Little brother, don't mess around." "This is war," Chiba Haomu said. "Sister, there must be a winner and a loser in a war. If it wasn't like that, then the battle between martial artists would have lost its meaning." "But, sister, no buts. Our family motto is courage and wisdom." Without hesitation, Saburo Fujino looked at Fang Yen and asked, "Teacher Fang Yen, our team members have stepped forward. How long are you going to hide your contestants?" What? A wooden door was pushed open from the inside. Tangqing, dressed in a white Taoist robe, walked out with a wooden sword in his hand. He said in a clear voice, "I've been waiting for you for a long time." Clatter. The students of Rosefinch Secondary immediately applauded. Tangqing is so handsome. His outfit is really not bad. As expected of the school hunk. I can't help but admire him. I knew it was Tangqing. I heard that Tangqing's kung fu is very powerful. It had to be said that this kid, Tangqing, was praised by the girls of Rosefinch Secondary as the school hunk. He really did have some skill. Not to mention his dazzling results and outstanding skills. Just the way he walked out in the white Taoist robe of the Taekwondo club while holding a wooden sword gave people the feeling of a handsome and elegant young man. His slender figure, exquisite facial features, and the natural arrogance he exuded made him really attractive to young girls. Fang Yan walked in front of Tangqing and said with a smile, "Have you thought it through?" "I didn't come for you," Tangqing said. "If you think that I'm participating in this competition because of you, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. It doesn't matter who you came for. As long as you stand here today, you will be my good student." Fang Yan patted Tangqing's shoulder. Tangqing frowned. In the end, he did not slap away Fang Yan's restless palm in front of everyone. The members of both sides were in place. Tangqing had already changed his attire and was ready to fight. Fang Yan looked at Saburo Fujino and said, "Let your team members go in and change their clothes." Saburo Fujino said a few words to Chiba Haomu. Chiba Haomu nodded and followed Luo Yi to the changing room where the new Taoist robes were prepared. When Chiba Haomu came out wearing a black Taoist robe and holding a wooden sword of his choice, the match was about to begin. Luo Yi was the president of the Taekwondo club and the only judge for this competition. Fencing was different from other competitions. The winner and loser were clear at a glance. Therefore, there was no need for too many judges to vote. Luo Yi stood between the two of them and said in English that they could understand, "Do you want to wear protective gear?" Both Tangqing and Chiba Haomu shook their heads and refused. They did not have the habit of wearing protective gear. Since both sides have chosen not to wear protective gear, then I would like to propose 3 rules. First, you are not allowed to stab your opponent's vital parts. Second, the winning side is not allowed to kill anyone. Most importantly, when I say stop, you must stop immediately. He was afraid that the two of them would fight to the death. If that happened, things would become difficult to deal with. Although they were both using wooden swords, their fists could kill people. Not to mention, the wooden swords in the hands of these experts were not much different from real iron swords. Both Tangqing and Chiba Haomu nodded to show that they understood. Luo Yi took 3 steps back and said, "Members from both sides, salute." Tangqing and Chiba Haomu bowed to each other and performed the traditional etiquette. "Ready!" Luo Yi shouted. After the two of them had finished their preparations, Luo Yi shouted, "Ready!" Chiba Haomu was dressed in a black robe. He raised the wooden sword in his hand high, as though he wanted to cleave his opponent from head to toe. This was his usual starting stance, and it was also the stance that could best showcase his swordsmanship. Moreover, this move of his had a very famous name. It was called Silent Victory. The so-called silent duel meant that after the battle began, the victor would be decided before the bamboo blades in their hands struck each other. The other party didn't even have the chance to hit their own side, much less win. This move was imparted to the famous swordsman Takeyanagi Asashiro. Takeyanagi Asashiro was Chiba Haomu's opponent, but Chiba Haomu liked Takeyanagi Asashiro's fighting style very much. He had especially learned it. Tangqing was dressed in white. He looked relaxed and casual as he sized up the Rosefinch Secondary team. The match was about to begin, but Qin Etian hadn't arrived yet. This made him feel both regretful and disappointed. One had to know that before he decided to participate in this competition, he had specially sent a message to Qin Etian. Could it be that Qin Etian's phone ran out of battery and was powered off? There were 3 ways to attack in Sword Dao: Killer Sword, Killer Move, and Killing Aura. Chiba Haomu's killing intent was released as he was ready to strike. His adorable face turned serious, and his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. He looked at Tangqing with killing intent. He was only waiting for an opportunity to kill in one strike. At this moment, Chiba Haomu was cold, completely different from the image he usually gave others. If the usual Chiba Haowu was an innocent and cute bunny, the current Chiba Haowu was like a wolf on the hunt. Qin Yiqian wasn't here, so the battle still had to continue. Tangqing was amused when he saw Chiba Haomu's expression. This kid is quite serious. He looks like he wants to kill someone. When the corners of Tangqing's mouth curled up, Chiba Haomu's chance had arrived. This was because he knew very well that when a person smiled, it was also when they were at their most relaxed. When the mood was relaxed, the body would naturally relax. This was the perfect time to defeat his opponent. Chiba Haomu slashed out with his sword, and the wind whistled like a flute. This was the sound of the bamboo sword cutting through the air. The sword hilt and blade were burning hot as if they were about to be burned. When an expert made a move, it was obvious whether he was skilled or not. The speed of the sword, the strong airflow caused by the friction in the air, and the aura that enveloped his entire body were enough to make people's hearts tremble. An expert. This guy was definitely an expert. Moreover, he wasn't an expert in the field of student fights. He wasn't the president of the Taekwondo club, nor was he the number one in Huaqing. His opponent was a professional, an adult, and an expert with sharp sword skills that could kill. Tangqing was born into a family of armed escorts, and there were also experts in his family who practiced swordsmanship. The way they drew their swords was exactly the same as the one in front of him. In fact, after experiencing it for himself, this Japanese boy who smiled shyly just now was even more powerful. Tangqing raised his sword to meet the attack. Crack! The two swords collided, and the wooden sword in Tangqing's hand broke into two. Although both swords were wooden, one was the attacker, and the other was the interceptor. One side had accumulated enough strength and momentum, while the other only wanted to block the attack. The tea had spirit, and the sword had murderous intent. Chiba Haomu's wooden sword had murderous intent, while Tangqing's didn't. Intent against intent, murderous intent against no murderous intent, and the one without murderous intent was naturally not a match for the other. Chiba Haomu seemed to have predicted this scene. After he broke the wooden sword in Tangqing's hand, he didn't retract his sword force, nor did he release his sword energy. The sword continued to slash downwards, aiming straight for Tangqing's head. "Don't!" The crowd shouted loudly. Some of the more timid girls couldn't help but close their eyes. They didn't dare to watch the tragedy that was about to happen. With Chiba Haomu's current momentum, if Tangqing's head was hit, it would definitely be split in half. Chapter 85. Wielding a killing sword in his hand, his intent was to kill the hearts of others. Chiba Haomu had grasped the essence of swordsmanship, learned sword techniques, nurtured killing intent, and was known as a high-level swordsman. At such a young age, he was able to attain such a level of attainment in swordsmanship. This was truly an amazing feat as expected of someone from a famed swordsmanship sect. With hundreds and thousands of years of experience, it was only natural for them to have a complete set of methods to cultivate high-quality talents. In this era, not only did they need to rely on their fathers, they also needed to rely on their grandfathers. This caused Fang Yan to become extremely furious. If even birth was unequal, what fairness could there be in this world? After thinking about his own life experience, the anger within Fang Yan's heart gradually dissipated. There were some things that they could not decide on. He himself felt quite helpless about it. After cutting down the wooden sword in Tangqing's hand, Chiba Haomu's sword momentum did not dissipate. Instead, he increased his speed and pursued after Tangqing's head. If he were to land a direct hit, Tangqing's head would likely be cut into two, just like the wooden sword. "Don't!" The spectators cried out. Even Saburo Fujino, Matsushima Ki, and the others were terrified. Although they wanted to win this match, they had no intention of injuring the students of the Fellowship Academy. If something were to happen to the students of Rosefinch Secondary, they would not be able to answer to their superiors when they return. Naturally, whether or not they would be able to return was a question that they would have to consider. Fang Yan frowned. This kid's swordsmanship is not bad, but his killing intent is too heavy. His sword move was a simple one. From the moment he cut down Tongqing's wooden sword to the moment he aimed for Tongqing's head, he did not change his move at all. However, his attack was faster and more ferocious. It appeared as though he would not rest until he managed to cut down Tongqing. Although Fang Yan did not have a good impression of Chiba Haomu, he did not shout out to stop him. He had tested out Tongqing's strength. If Tongqing could not dodge this attack, then he would be too disappointing. Mentality. The most important thing was one's mentality. If Tongqing remained indifferent, then Xianxia Haowu would undoubtedly be the winner of this duel. Luo Yi did not exercise the referee's right to stop the match. Originally, he had a cynical attitude, thinking that this was just a child's game. It was really boring. Luo Yi and Tongqing were friends, so he was quite clear about Tongqing's skills. If it weren't for the fact that Tongqing didn't like these troublesome things, the Taekwondo dojo would have been overturned by him countless times. He had sparred with Tongqing before, so he knew how big the gap between him and Tongqing was. He was just a hobby, but Tongqing was a professional. If the swordsmen chosen by the East Asians were not strong enough, they wouldn't even be able to cut vegetables for Tongqing. It wasn't until Chiba Haomu's sword cut straight at Tongqing's head that he felt a little burned. This was how war should be. Tongqing did not disappoint Fang Yan and Luo Yi's expectations. At the beginning, he was a little careless. Compared with the opponent standing in front of him, he was more concerned about whether Qin Etian came to watch his match. Of course, it was necessary to defeat his opponent. He just hoped that when he defeated his opponent, his goddess, Qin Etian, happened to be watching from the side. When he defeated his opponent, Qin Yin could say, "Tongqing is so handsome," or smile sweetly at him. Just a smile was enough. However, Qin Yin did not show up at the match. This made him feel extremely disappointed. When he was in a bad mood, he couldn't help but feel a little down. When he saw the serious look on his opponent's face, he felt a little funny. It was also at this time that Chiba Haowu launched an attack. When Tongqing's wooden sword broke, he was lost for a moment. Before his brain could react, his body had already made the necessary response. He gripped the broken hilt with his right hand and used the hard hilt to block Chiba Haowu's wooden sword. His left hand had already grabbed the broken slender sword that had yet to fall to the ground. Clang! Tongqing's wrist strength was amazing. When he blocked Chiba Haowu's slash with one hand, his left hand grabbed the wooden sword and stabbed it at Chiba Haowu's abdomen. When these two guys fought, they would not stop until one of them died. Chiba Haowu knew that he had met an expert with extremely strong reflexes, so his sword would be useless. He retracted his sword and retreated. Only then did the distance between the two widen. Chiba Haowu gripped his sword with both hands again and raised it high above his head. Tongqing looked at the broken sword in his hand with a serious expression. His eyes also became unprecedentedly serious. They knew that his opponent was an expert worthy of respect. "Tongqing, do you want to change your sword?" "Oh yes." He was the referee, so he was naturally willing to make things easier for Tongqing. Luo Yi could also see that Chiba Haowu was very powerful. If Tongqing kept using a broken sword, he might really be taken advantage of by this Japanese. Tongqing shook his head. "No need. If he doesn't change his sword, I won't either." "Be careful," Luo Yi warned. He didn't force the issue. Tongqing threw the broken sword in his left hand to the ground, leaving only the broken sword in his right hand. The wooden sword split down the middle. Part of it fell off, while the other part remained on the hilt. Thus, the sword hilt became a sharp dagger. Using a short sword against a long sword would definitely be disadvantageous in terms of distance and gravity. However, as long as Tongqing could get close to Chiba Haowu and attack him at close range, the long sword in Chiba Haowu's hand would become a burden. Clang! The two charged at the same time. Chiba Haowu did the same thing as before, slashing down with 180 degrees of gravity. The difference was that he was faster, and the angle of his attack was more strange and tricky, making it difficult to guard against. Tongqing dodged to the side, the short sword in his hand stabbing toward Chiba Haowu's left ribs. So, the long sword in Chiba Haowu's hand quickly changed from a heavy slash to a horizontal slash, slashing toward Tongqing's neck. Tongqing's steps were graceful, and his body had already moved out of the attack range of the wooden sword. Both of them were young and full of vigor, wanting to win this match. Chiba Haowu's advantage lay in his speed and ruthlessness, while Tangqing's advantage lay in his agility and steadiness. The two of them fought with speed, and the flashes of their swords and blades dazzled the onlookers. Fang Yen glanced at Saburo Fujino, who was standing beside him, and found that he was staring at Tangqing with a surprised look on his face. Clearly, he didn't expect that a random student that Fang Yen had found would have such ability. He was actually able to fight invincible Wu Ren's Chiba Haowu to a draw. Originally, he thought that Chen Xiaolian was scheming against him. Could it be that Chen Xiaolian wanted to make him sad again? Saburo Fujino noticed that Fang Yen was looking at him and asked in a whisper, "This student, is he Rosefinch's student?" Of course, Fang Yen nodded his head with absolute certainty. His name is Tangqing. You can take a look at the list of students in our class. As Fang Yen spoke, he pulled out a list from his pocket. Pointing at number 42, Tangqing, he said, "That's him." "He is the last one?" Saburo Fujino's small eyes began to spin. Could it be that he had deliberately added Tangqing's name on the list in order to deal with my inspection? "I know what you are suspecting." As Fang Yen spoke, he pulled out a student ID card from his pocket and said, "Look, this is student Tangqing's student ID card." Saburo Fujino accepted the student ID card and inspected it. It was indeed Tangqing's photo. His name and other information were all authentic. But isn't this student ID card a little too new? Did it just get done? It was true that Tangqing's student ID card had just been completed. He had been transferred from Class 1 to Class 9. Naturally, he needed to report it to the school. The school would also need to issue a new student ID card for him. Fang Yen knew that Saburo Fujino was a paranoid person. Be it Qin Itian, Xiao Pinqing, or Tangqing, any one of these students would be an outstanding talent. How could they just happen to be in Class 9? Thus, Fang Yen had made preparations in advance. He had brought along the relevant ID cards of these students. Weren't you suspicious? You are welcome to check it out. Of course, this time, it was fortunate that Qin Itian had been transferred to Class 9 in advance because of him. As for Tangqing, he had been transferred to Class 9 in order to follow Qin Itian. Without the help of these two experts, Fang Yen would not have so easily agreed to compete with the Wu Ren inspection team in the way of tea and fencing. In the past, the school would let the students of Class 1 be in charge of receiving inspection teams from outside the school. A straw in the wind. From the performance of Qin Itian and Tangqing, Class 1 was indeed full of talents and elites. What Fang Yen did not know was that Qin Itian and Tangqing were originally the top 3 students in Class 1. They were elites that the teachers of Class 1 treated like treasures. The two of them skipped Class 1 after the other, causing Class 1's teacher in charge to be heartbroken. He hated Fang Yen to the core. If it were not for Lu Chaoga speaking up for Fang Yen, Class 1's teacher in charge would have long since jumped out and thrown a pair of white gloves at Fang Yen's face. "It was just done," Fang Yen answered honestly. The smile on Saburo Fujino's face grew wider and he said, "Then, is there such a possibility? Tangqing was not originally a student in your class? Is he a student from another class or school? For the sake of this competition, did you specially invite him over?" Fang Yen looked at Saburo Fujino with a smile and said, "Fujino-sensei's questioning expression is truly amusing. Like a cute woman." "Teacher Fang Yen, what do you mean by that?" Saburo Fujino stared at Fang Yen warily. "This fellow could not possibly have that kind of hobby, right? I am a decent person. I have heard that there are 2 types of women. Those who are good-looking but unreasonable and those who are not good-looking but unreasonable. I feel that Teacher Fujino is very similar to the second type of woman." Fang Yen. Saburo Fujino was truly furious. He could still accept being called a woman. However, calling him an ugly woman was beyond the limits of what he could accept. "Teacher Fujino, are you a sore loser?" Fang Yen asked with a straight face. Chapter 86. Who is a sore loser? Saburo Fujino was like a rabbit that had its tail stepped on as he screamed out. If that is not the case, Why would teacher Fujino keep picking on such minor flaws? I cannot help but suspect that teacher Fujino is looking for an excuse for his own failure, Fang Yan sneered. Seeing the two clowns bickering again, Lu Chaoga gave them a glance before turning her attention back to the intense battle taking place in the middle of the arena. Matsushima Ki shook his head. He was helpless against these two fellows. I am afraid that you will cheat, Saburo Fujino said with confidence. This is your territory. Who knows what kind of arrangements you will make in order to win? This is a classic example of measuring the heart of a gentleman with one's own yardstick, Fang Yan said with a ridiculing tone. Did anyone invite you to listen in on Class 9? Saburo Fujino thought about it. Back then, Vice Principal Matsushima Ki was the one who suggested to listen in on Class 9. When Matsushima Ki saw that Fang Yan was able to become Rosefinch's language teacher at such a young age, he became curious and suggested to listen in on Class 9. In other words, it was a random inspection and no one had arranged for it. No, Saburo Fujino said. Who suggested the tea ceremony, calligraphy, and fencing competitions? It was me. If that is the case, shouldn't I be the one questioning the school's deliberate arrangements? Why are you questioning us? Fang Yan said with a chuckle. He pointed at Chiba-ku, Ueno Nobita, and Chiba Haomu, who was brandishing his sword. Do you dare swear to all the deities of the two countries that they are not the candidates that you have arranged in advance? Or is it because you already knew that there was such an expert in your team? That's why you deliberately proposed these 3 competitions? Our school has many talents. It is not just these 3 competitions. Saburo Fujino said stubbornly. He was not willing to admit that he had planned this out, and the result was a painful truth. Is that so? Then, shall we add 3 more competitions? Fang Yan said with a smile. Saburo Fujino did not dare to agree. Rosefinch had won 2 of the 3 matches he had arranged in advance. If Rosefinch proposed the competition, would they still have a chance of winning? It was one thing for others to humiliate him, but did he have to humiliate himself as well? What? Are you unwilling? I don't have enough time to arrange it. Saburo Fujino finally found a plausible excuse. We're going back tomorrow. A student's homework cannot be delayed. You see, you have all taken advantage of us, but Fujino-sensei is still suspicious of us. If you really think that there's something wrong with the 3 students I've chosen, their student files and information are all in the school's archives. You can check them at any time. This can't be faked, right? However, I'd like to ask, are the 20 students from the Wuren delegation all in the same class? Naturally not, Saburo Fujino replied. We are selecting based on merit. It's the same every year. This is Wu Ren's rule. Exactly. You will select outstanding students from the entire school or even the entire country to form a team. We are only selecting students from Wuren High School to be sent out, Saburo Fujino corrected. Who selected students from all over the country to participate in the competition. Was there a need for that? Who knows what happened to you all in Japan? I have no way of checking their student IDs and files. Fang Yan waved his hand. Saburo Fujino felt as though he had been stabbed in the chest. The feeling of being drenched in blood. You are sending outstanding students from all over the country to compete against students from the same class. Do you feel guilty for doing this? Fang Yan said with righteous indignation. Although we know that this is unfair to us, we did not refuse. Why? Because we consider you all as our guests, our close comrades. But Fujino-sensei, how did you treat us? Is this how East Asians treat their friends? I'm sorry. Saburo Fujino was deeply moved and he blurted out those 3 words. After saying those words, Saburo Fujino reacted. Why did I have to apologize to him? This fellow's stomach is full of evil tricks. Who knows which of his words is the truth and which is the lie? Fujino-sensei, you are able to recognize your own mistakes and be a narrow-minded person. Moreover, you are willing to sincerely apologize to me. Fang Yan held Saburo Fujino's hand and said with a sincere face, I will consider accepting your offer. As the 2 of them were bickering, the battle between Chiba Haomu and Tangqing had reached its climax. Luo Yi followed closely behind Chiba Haomu and Tangqing, shouting incessantly. Occasionally, he would even shout out words like, good sword, despicable sword. It was as though he was the one participating in the battle. The baby-faced Chiba Haomu had entered a berserk state. His hair was disheveled and his eyes were sharp. The black Taoist robes he wore fluttered in the wind. Every step he took forward or backward would cause the wind to howl. He had inherited the essence of the North Star one-blade style. His sword attacks were simple, but the angles were strange. Every one of his sword attacks was aimed at the vital spots of his opponent. Add that to his ghostly speed when moving at full speed, it was impossible to defend against his attacks. Tangqing's deep foundation came in handy at this moment. He was able to deal with the myriad of changes by remaining unchanging. His body was tall and his movements were slow. Standing there, he was like a target, allowing Chiba Haomu to attack him from all directions, making him extremely busy. Tangqing changed his strategy. Originally, he had wanted to fight Chiba Haomu with speed and end the battle in the shortest amount of time possible. That way, he would look more handsome. However, when he found that he could not defeat Chiba Haomu in a short amount of time and that Chiba Haomu was better at speed than him, he knew that something was amiss. Rhythm. Everyone had their own unique rhythm. This was also the rhythm that they were best at. Chiba Haomu liked speed, but Tangqing's foundation was solid. Additionally, his swordsmanship was methodical, making it more suitable for him to stay still. He could not follow Chiba Haomu's rhythm. He wanted to control the rhythm himself. Or rather, he wanted to make full use of his own rhythm. Thus, it became a situation where one was fast on the offense and the other was slow on the defense. It was precisely because both of them made full use of what they were good at that the battle was so exciting. The long sword in his hand swung down with great force, aiming for Tangqing's face. Tangqing blocked the attack with his short dagger. He took a few steps forward and directly crashed into Chiba Haomu's chest. Chiba Haomu's sword was raised in the air. His chest was empty, and he lost control of his inner line. However, he changed his moves extremely quickly and viciously. The wooden sword in his hand made a 180-degree turn. Initially, the tip of the sword was pointing outwards, but when he hooked his wrist, the tip of the sword stabbed at Tangqing, who was in his arms. To an onlooker, it was almost a suicidal move. If he was holding a real sword in his hand, then when he stabbed Tangqing's body, it would be inevitable that he would also stab himself. However, he knew the characteristics of a wooden sword very well. He knew the weight of the sword and the speed at which he attacked, and what kind of damage he would inflict on his opponent. Clang. Tangqing once again blocked the tip of the long sword with the hilt of the sword and slammed his elbow backward. Chiba Haomu had two choices now. He could either endure the elbow attack and persist in stabbing his long sword into Tangqing's chest, or he could dodge the elbow attack, and his suicidal attack would be nullified at the same time. Chiba Haomu chose the former. In a battle where both sides were evenly matched, the only thing left to do was to make a choice. A smart person would kill 1,000 enemies at the cost of 800 of himself, while a fool would kill 800 enemies at the cost of 1,000 injuries. Victory and defeat would be decided in this way. He could withstand the elbow attack, but he believed that Tangqing would not be able to withstand the full force of his piercing technique. Chiba Haomu grunted. His upper body fell backwards, but his lower body was unusually stable. Creak! The tip of the long sword in his hand moved forward with unstoppable force, grinding against the hilt. The tip of the sword inched closer to Tangqing's chest. As long as it pierced through, Tangqing would instantly lose the ability to fight. Of course, he would lose the ability to fight forever. A miserable scream rang out. The wooden sword in Chiba Haomu's hand fell to the ground. He clutched his abdomen with his right hand and staggered backward. Plop! His body fell on the wooden floor with a hideous expression. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and he looked like he was in extreme pain. Tangqing stood still and sneered at Chiba Haomu, who was sitting on the ground. The sword hilt that he had been holding in his left hand to block the tip of the sword had been transferred to his right hand, and red blood was seeping out from the blade. Chiba Haomu. A group of people rushed over and surrounded Chiba Helm. Saburo Fujino rushed to the front of Tangqing and roared, "Kid, you bastard! What did you do to him? What did you do to him?" Chiba Kaori's face was covered in tears as she cried, "Haomu, little brother, are you okay? How do you feel?" Matsushima Nori was a beat too slow to squeeze into the middle of the crowd. Her expression was ugly as she stared sharply at Lu Chaoga and said, "If anything happens to my student, we will definitely seek justice." Lu Chaoga calmly looked at Matsushima Nori and said, "We also don't want this to happen. Of course, I will respect any choice you make." Tangqing walked to the front of Fang Yen and threw the sword hilt in his hand to the ground. He said in a free and easy manner, "I won." After saying that, he turned around and left. "Be careful!" someone shouted. Chiba Haomu, who was lying on the ground a moment ago, jumped up and stabbed the sword in his hand at Tangqing's back. This kid's eyes were bloodshot. Chapter 87. Tangqing walked away proudly and carefreely. He was proud of the fact that he had just won a match. Moreover, it was a very good match. Although Qiniqian didn't get to see it with his own eyes, he had won in front of Fang Yen. Let's see if this guy still dares to belittle and bully me like this in the future. Free and easy was the image he always presented to others. As the most handsome guy in Vermilion Bird Middle School, he needed to put on airs at all times to be a good spokesperson. This was just a match between students, and he really didn't want to think too much about it. A loss was a loss, and a win was a win. Now that the outcome had been decided, what was there to argue about? However, what Tangqing didn't expect was that Chiba Haowu didn't give up just because he thought that the match was over. While a group of people surrounded him and looked at him with concern, Chiba Haowu grabbed the wooden sword on the ground and jumped up, thrusting the tip of the long sword at Tangqing's back. He couldn't accept this. He couldn't lose. He wanted to prove to his compatriots and himself that he was invincible. It happened so suddenly that Tangqing wasn't prepared at all. When he heard someone shouting behind him, he turned around in surprise. He couldn't believe that Chiba Haowu still dared to stab someone with his sword after the match was over. Thus, Chiba Haowu's sword that was originally aimed at his back became his heart. Anyone who had watched Animal World would know that when an animal struggled on its deathbed, it could explode with shocking destructive power. When a swordsman was determined to win, he could also perform beyond his usual level. Great sword chi technique. Great sword chi technique. His movements were graceful and ruthless, and his speed was as fast as lightning. He had just jumped up, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Tangqing. The long sword closed in inch by inch, and was about to pierce a large hole in Tangqing's chest. Tangqing felt the sharp killing intent, and his body tensed up. It was a natural reaction when facing extreme danger. There was a burning pain in his chest, which was caused by the sword chi that had attacked him first. Asterisk hiss. Asterisk the oxygen in the air rubbed against the lightning-fast wooden sword, producing a hissing sound. That was the sound of the air being stimulated and ignited. The wooden sword was too hot, and the tip of the sword was scorching hot. It looked like it was about to catch fire. After practicing swordsmanship for more than 10 years, this was the best sword thrust Chinya Haowu had ever performed. This was his highest level. This was a realm he had never reached before. Today he did it. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were bloodshot. He was laughing. It was a ferocious and joyous smile. For this sword that he had thrust out with the highest level. Tangqing was dumbfounded. If this was a battlefield, if it was a formal battle just now, with his ability, he could definitely make the most exquisite and accurate reaction or counterattack. However, at this moment, he was at a loss. What was this? Were they going to continue fighting? Or would they fight to the death? However, what was the attitude of the school? Could he do that? His pupils dilated and his heart was in a mess. Asterisk chi. Asterisk he felt the tip of the sword pierce through his clothes. The wooden sword was about to continue forward, piercing through his flesh and organs. Everything it encountered, even his bones. Chinya Haowu felt it too. There was only one focus in his eyes, and that was where the tip of the sword was. He felt the sound of a sharp sword piercing through something. It was a clear and melodious sound that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. Such a voice filled him with fighting spirit and a sense of accomplishment. Tang Qing retreated and retreated again. However, how could this aimless retreating speed compare to Qinya Haowu's flying speed? Kill! Qinya Haowu roared. As he roared, his dantian was full of qi, allowing him to fly faster and more nimbly in the air. All of a sudden, the entire scene underwent a drastic change. Tang Qing was still retreating out of habit, while Qinya Haowu's body stopped in the air. The difference between these two extremes was strange and distorted. No matter how hard he tried, the sword could not move forward. Everyone's eyes widened as they watched this unbelievable scene unfold before them. A gust of wind blew, fluttering Qinya Haowu's black robes, Tang Qing's white robes, and Fang Yan's soft hair. It was still alive. Everything was alive. It was just that Fang Yan, the time magician, had a little control over it. Fang Yan's body was tilted, one hand holding onto Qinya Haowu's ankle. He had not used his other hand yet. When Chiba Haowu passed by Fang Yan, the only thing he could do was to turn around 180 degrees and grab at the same time, seeing that he had the situation under control and that Tang Qing had not been pierced by Qinya Haowu's sword. Fang Yan finally felt relieved. If someone had died, everyone present would not be able to escape responsibility. Whether it was Lu Chaoga, Matsushima Ki, Saburo Fujino, or himself, all of the teachers would face serious charges. Qinya Haowu, for the sake of victory, to satisfy his own selfish desires, he had disregarded the lives of others and the future of a large group of teachers. This narrow-minded madman, this bloodthirsty demon. Fang Yan was enraged. Qinya Haowu's actions had thoroughly enraged him. Fang Yan's right hand pulled hard, and Qinya Haowu's body flew back. Qinya Haowu stabbed back with his sword, but Fang Yan's left hand shot out like lightning and punched his wrist. Clang! Qinya Haowu felt pain in his arm, and the wooden sword fell to the ground. After using the power of Tai Chi to dissipate the remaining power in his body, Qinya Haowu became Fang Yan's meat target. He grabbed Qinya Haowu's calf with one hand, and with his left foot as the axis, he kicked with his right foot. His body immediately spun, and Qinya Haowu's body, which was still in the air, spun with him. Fang Yan's right foot kicked again, and they spun even faster. Thousand-faced spinning top. At first, Fang Yan needed to borrow external force, but when their bodies spun at a certain speed, Fang Yan became the axis, and Qinya Haowu became the pendulum. Now, Qinya Haowu's body was dragging Fang Yan to spin. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Everyone could only hear the whistling wind, like an electric fan spinning at a high frequency. In the beginning, they could still see Fang Yan's cold face and Qinya Haowu's frightened eyes. Soon, they became a shadow of the wind. They were standing in front of you, but you couldn't see them clearly. They had countless faces swaying in front of you, and your eyes couldn't take them in. This time, it was the people around them who were worried about Qinya Haowu. Let go of Qinya Haowu. Let go of him, Fang Yan. What are you doing? Principal Lu, ask your teacher to let go of him. Lu Chaoga's face was as cold as frost, and she said in a cold voice, "My students are rational, and so is my teacher. I have full confidence in them." Lu Chaoga was fighting back. I have confidence in my teacher and students, but do you have the same confidence? If you have confidence in your students, then what kind of behavior did the scene that just happened in front of your eyes belong to? Matsushima Nori was speechless, and after a long time he said, "We have to find a gentler solution." Chiba Haowu was really frightened, and she ran over to grab Matsushima Nori's hand, saying, "Principal, please save Qinya Haowu. Please save Qinya Haowu." Matsushima Nori glanced at Fang Yan, who was still spinning in circles, and shook his head, indicating that there was nothing he could do. She couldn't go up and beat up Fang Yan, could she? Chiba Haowu ran to Lu Chaoga and said in English, "Principal, I apologize. I know Qinya Haowu. He's too ridiculous, but he's just a child. But he's still a child, please save him. Everyone has to pay the price for doing something wrong," Lu Chaoga said with a straight face. After saying that, she felt that it was a little familiar. Who said that to her? Fang Yen spun faster and faster, as if he had really turned into a spinning top. If the little flags on the Spring Festival Gala were to spin at this speed, they wouldn't even last 10 minutes. When they reached a subtle speed, Fang Yen suddenly let go of Qinya Haowu's ankle. Qinya Haomu was like an arrow that was shot out, flying forward quickly. Before Chiba Haowu could rejoice, she saw Fang Yen running in the direction where Qinya Haowu was flying. Fang Yen ran forward, and when his toes touched the ground, he bounced up and landed without a sound. He was running on the ground, while Qinya Haowu was flying in the air. From a bystander's point of view, it looked like Fang Yen was running with Qinya Haowu on his back. Of course, Fang Yen wasn't running with him on his back. He had other uses for his hands. Bang, bang, bang. His fists shot out like lightning, hitting Qinya Haowu's head, face, chest, abdomen, and every other part of his body that he could reach. With each punch, Qinya Haowu's body would rise and fall at an even faster speed. Fang Yen punched again and sent Qinya Haowu flying higher into the air. The dojo was huge. Fang Yen pulled Qinya Haowu's body from the entrance to the inner wall. Seeing that Qinya Haowu's head was about to hit the wall in front of him, Fang Yen suddenly did a 180-degree handstand. With both hands on the ground, he kicked with his right foot at lightning speed. Bang! What a beautiful shot! Qinya Haowu's body flew high into the roof of the dojo and then fell at a speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye. Clang! His body fell heavily on the wooden board, and he landed face first on the ground with his butt facing the sky. He didn't move or make a sound for a long time. The entire venue was silent. Everyone stared at Fang Yen with widened eyes. They looked at the handsome and tall man standing in the middle of the dojo. Was he a Superman hidden in the human world? Chapter 88. If you are given the freedom to choose your teacher, what qualities and abilities do you want your teacher to possess? Handsome and confident, someone said. Knowledgeable and knowledgeable, someone else said. Amiable and able to get along well with the students. This was the common wish of the students. There might be 1,000 answers to this question, but not a single student would request for their teacher to know martial arts. Martial arts was one of the traditions of Wuxia and one of the labels of Wuxia's culture. Even some foreigners would praise Wuxia's martial arts. However, how many of them had actually seen it in action? In the eyes of the ordinary students, the fight between Tangqing and Chiba Haomu had already exceeded their scope of understanding. They felt that it was impossible for something like that to happen. This kind of martial arts was too distant from their lives. However, when Fang Yen suddenly unleashed his universe like a Saint Seiya and threw Chiba Haomu into the air, they looked at Fang Yen as if they were looking at an alien. Was this still the Fang Yen teacher they knew, the one who read poems on the Bird River? Was this still the Fang Yen teacher who led them to the alley to learn Alley in the Rain? Was this still the Fang Yen teacher who was sharp with his words, lively and interesting in class, and looked like the big brother next door? The students were all filled with admiration and worship. Their bodies were trembling, and they were so excited that they could not control themselves. Matsushimiki's face was filled with shock as he stared at Fang Yen for a long time. He had even temporarily forgotten to check on Chiba Haomu's injuries. Is there anything else I don't know? Lu Chaoga murmured as she looked at Fang Yen's eyes thoughtfully. Although she had not known Fang Yen for long, she believed that she had some understanding of him. Talented, arrogant, quick-witted, and courageous. What she saw today had overturned her understanding of Fang Yen. She knew that the Fang Yen she had seen before was only the tip of the iceberg. What else was he hiding? Saburo Fujino's body was trembling. It was not surprise or admiration, but anger. This bastard, this guy who deserves to be struck by lightning, he has challenged me time and time again. Is this the weak scholar he was talking about? Is this what he meant by being powerless? Saburo Fujino could imagine it. If he had accepted Fang Yan's challenge, even if it was just once, the one lying on the same spot as Chiba Haomu would be him. When he thought of Qinya Haowu, he also thought of the situation they were currently facing. Saburo Fujino quickly rushed over to the spot where Chiba Haomu had fallen. He grabbed Chiba Haomu's shoulder and shook him. Chiba Haomu, how are you? Wake up. Hearing Saburo Fujino's shout, the others reacted. Kei Matsushima, Chiba-kuru, and the teachers and students of the Warren investigation team gathered around him. They looked at Chiba Haomu's body worriedly. Even now, his eyes were still closed and he did not move at all. He didn't know what was going on. If you continue to shake him, his bones will fall apart, Fang Yan said coldly. He just couldn't understand why some people would hug and shake someone when they saw someone fainting on the ground. Didn't they know that this kind of action could sometimes kill someone? After the high-intensity exercise earlier, Fang Yan had vented out most of the anger in his heart. He was also a martial artist. Moreover, he was a martial artist with style and morals. After thousands of years, the words, martial art moral, had been deeply engraved in the blood of every martial artist. Regardless of whether it was a sect or a family, martial artists must first cultivate their morals. If one's morals were not right, one's martial arts would not be pure. Those who learned martial arts and used it to harm others would be known as demons in the past. Now they would be known as scum. Fang Yan was strict with himself, and he abided by the ancient spirit of martial art moral. Thus, when he saw scum like Chiba Haomu appear, his mood was particularly bad. If such a person was in ancient times, everyone would have the right to punish him. Moreover, the consequences of Chiba Haomu's actions were too serious. He only wanted to win, he only wanted to stab out with his sword. If he were to succeed, how would they end up? How would Rosefinch Secondary end up? How would his dearest, most respected and most beloved Lu Chaoga end up? For a moment, Fang Yan's rationality was overshadowed by his anger. He gulped down a mouthful of saliva with the smell of blood. Thus, he spun, chased and sent him flying with a kick. Only by doing so would his heart feel better. Hearing Fang Yan's words, Fujino Saburo quickly loosened his grip on Chiba Haomu's shoulder. Fang Yan. Fujino Saburo shouted at Fang Yan. Fujino-sensei, do you want to reason with me? Fang Yan stared at Fujino Saburo with a sharp gaze and spoke in an unfriendly tone. Fujino Saburo was a little afraid of Fang Yan. Teacher Fang Yan. Matsushima Ki's voice was calm. However, it was clearly more intimidating compared to Fujino Saburo's shout. What happened to Chiba Haomu? If anything happens to him, you will bear all the responsibility. If he does not die, I will bear all the responsibility. If he dies, the school will bear all the responsibility, Fang Yan sneered. Similarly, if anything happens to my student, you will also bear all the responsibility. Fang Yan turned to look at Tangqing and asked, You have not fainted yet? Tangqing looked at Fang Yan with a confused expression. So many things had happened so suddenly that he was still in a daze. Wasn't it just a friendly match? How did it end up like this? Don't you feel dizzy and your internal organs are on fire? Don't you feel like you are about to faint? Fang Yan asked. Only then did Tangqing understand. He clutched his chest and shouted, My heart is in so much pain. I cannot take it anymore. I cannot take it anymore. Plop. Tangqing shamelessly lay down at the entrance of the building. His posture was very unsightly. Fang Yan pointed at Tangqing, who was lying on the floor, and said angrily, This was originally a match to deepen our understanding and friendship. Our side has always adhered to the principle of friendship first, competition second. We have always been respectful and modest, courteous and restrained. What did you do? Ambushing someone when the match is already over, what kind of behavior is that? This is a shameful behavior, a shameless behavior. Chiba Haomu's sneak attack caused our team member to be seriously injured and he is currently unconscious. If anything happens to Tangqing, we will use the most severe and violent means to demand justice. Rosefinch is not someone that can be bullied so easily. Saburo Fujino and Kei Matsushima exchanged glances and understood the meaning behind those words, fake injuries. They knew that Tangqing had deliberately lied down on the floor and his injuries were not that serious. However, if they insisted that Chiba Haomu's sneak attack caused Tangqing to be seriously injured and that he was still unconscious, there was nothing they could do. They could not just run to the sickbed and point at Tangqing and shout that he was faking injuries and that he was actually fine. Whether his body was injured or not, they could easily find out. Whether his head was injured or not, how could they be sure? Qi Matsushima looked at Lu Chaoga, implying that she needed to make a decision on this matter. After all, this happened in Rosefinch's territory. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan and said, "Send the injured team member to the hospital for treatment?" Fang Yan nodded and said, "Of course. However, this matter is not over." When Tangqing opened his eyes, only Fang Yan was sitting beside him. The others had all left. Tangqing's injuries were not serious, but they were not light either. Although Chiba Haomu's sword did not pierce through his body, it did cut his flesh. If Fang Yan had not grabbed Chiba Haomu's ankle, the consequences would have been terrible. In addition, he had exercised too much in the afternoon. As he was undergoing one checkup after another, he unknowingly fell asleep. When he woke up again, his exhaustion disappeared and he felt much better. "Don't be so fast," Fang Yan said. "If Chiba Haomu is unconscious for 1 day, you will be unconscious for 2 days. If Chiba Haomu is lying here for half a year, you will be lying here for half a year and a day. We must endure longer than them." "There is no need to do this, right?" Tangqing said with a bitter face. If what Fang Yan said was true, Chiba Haomu would not recover after half a year. Would he really have to spend half a year on the sickbed? He felt that he would go crazy. Moreover, how could he pursue Qin Etienne while lying on the sickbed? If Qin Etienne was snatched away by another boy while he was lying on the sickbed, who would be responsible? He was a boy with dreams and goals. There were too many things for him to consider. "Who am I?" Fang Yan pointed at his face and asked. "Fang Yan?" Tangqing looked at Fang Yan with a puzzled expression. What was wrong with this guy? Did he not even know who he was? "Teacher, the language teacher of class 9. "No, I am your savior," Fang Yan said. "You have to admit that if I did not save you today, you would not have the chance to open your eyes and see me. You would not have the right to breathe the air in this ward that is not considered fresh, let alone talk to me. Am I right?" Tangqing's heart was extremely bitter. He owed Fang Yan a favor, a huge one. "I beat up Chiba Haomu for you, right?" "Yes. Although I am not someone who expects others to repay favors, if Chiba Haomu does not recover, Wu Ren will definitely hold me responsible. If they hold me responsible, I will be in a lot of trouble. Of course, if your injuries are more serious than his, they will not have the right and face to trouble me. Tell me, how are you going to repay me for saving your life? If Chiba Haomu is in a coma for 1 day, I will be in a coma for 2 days. If Chiba Haomu is in a coma for half a year, I will be in a coma for half a year and a day," Tangqing said with a sad face. Fang Yan patted Tangqing's shoulder and said, "As expected of my, Fang Yan's, student. When I first saw you, I felt that you are a good man who will never go back on your word." Chapter 89. Chiba Haomu did not stay in a coma for 3 to 5 days like Fang Yan had said. He woke up on the night of the accident. He opened his eyes and looked at the white ceiling with a dull expression. No one knew what he was thinking. Chiba Haomu sat beside Chiba Haomu, her beautiful eyes staring at him without blinking. Her face was calm and she did not appear particularly happy because he had woken up. Matsushima Ki and Saburo Fujino exchanged glances. Matsushima Ki then signaled Saburo with his eyes. Despite his reluctance, Saburo Fujino walked over to stand before Chiba Haomu and asked in a soft voice, "Student Chiba Haomu, do you feel better?" Chiba Haomu did not answer, as if he did not hear his teacher. Saburo Fujino turned to look at Matsushima Ki and continued, "If you feel any discomfort in your body, you must tell us immediately. We will find a doctor to check on you." Chiba Haomu still did not answer. Saburo Fujino quickly walked to Matsushima Ki and whispered, "Principal, Chiba Haomu's condition is not optimistic. Is there something wrong with his mind?" "Give him some time," Matsushima Ki said. She glanced at Chiba Haomu and said, "Teacher Fujino, let's go out first." "Okay," Saburo Fujino replied. Matsushima Ki patted Chiba Haomu's shoulder and said, I will leave Chiba Haomu to you. Chiba Haomu stood up and bowed deeply to Matsushima Ki. Matsushima Ki sighed and said, Don't worry. We will take care of this. It was late at night and the corridor was empty. It was abnormally quiet. Saburo Fujino closed the door and said angrily, Principal, Rosefinch is too much of a bully. How can a teacher participate in a competition between students? It is one thing for a teacher to participate, but he also beat up a student. We must seek justice for Chiba Haomu. Otherwise, Wuren Senior High School's reputation will be tarnished. How can we face our peers at Wuren Senior High School? Matsushima Ki nodded. Then, Teacher Fujino will seek justice for Wu Ren. Principal Matsushima Ki. Saburo Fujino looked embarrassed. He was just an ordinary teacher in the delegation. He was not on the same level as Rosefinch Secondary. Only Matsushima Ki, the leader of the delegation, was qualified to negotiate with Rosefinch on behalf of Wu Ren. If he stepped forward, he would not have a legitimate reason to do so, and Rosefinch would not take him seriously. Matsushima Ki was in a bad mood. He also knew that it wasn't the time to be angry with his subordinates, so he explained, I'm afraid this matter is a little troublesome. What's so troublesome about it? Saburo Fujino was unconvinced. However, the tone of his voice was clearly much lower. Fang Yen is Vermilion Bird's teacher. He severely injured Wu Ren's student in front of so many people. That's right, we'll let Xianxia Haowu lie on the bed. We will not leave until they give us an apology, a satisfactory answer, and compensation sufficient to make up for our physical and emotional wounds. If it really doesn't work, we can make things worse. I want to see if they can withstand the pressure from society and the international community. It would be good if things were that simple. Matsushima Ki shook his head. Chiba Haowu violated the rules first, stabbing us in the back. They have something to use against us. That teacher surnamed Fang is too cunning. I fear that they are the ones who will not let this matter rest. Principal, you mean to say, not only will they not admit their mistake, they will also cause trouble for us. Based on your understanding of them, what do you think? Matsushima Ki asked. Saburo Fujino thought back to how he had interacted with Fang Yen and nodded with certainty. They will definitely do that. However, none of their team members were injured. What reason would they use to cause trouble for us? Some of our team members were injured. That is a fact that everyone knows. How do you know that none of their team members were injured? Chiba Haowu did not stab him at all. He was standing there perfectly fine, but he also fainted on the spot. That was a trick. Saburo Fujino was unable to continue. If they can trick, why can't Rosefinch do the same? Besides, what evidence do you have to prove that Rosefinch is cheating? Let's reconcile, Matsushima Ki said. Find a way to reconcile. What a humiliation. Saburo Fujino felt his chest aching again. Ever since they had inadvertently walked into Fang Yan's class 9, his chest had been aching ever since. I think the most humiliating thing is yet to come, Matsushima Ki said in a heavy tone. If we only lost our dignity, it would be a fortunate thing for us now. Chiba Haowu knew that Principal Matsushima Ki and Saburo Fujino were still standing in the corridor outside. Chiba Haowu's impulsive action had pushed the Wuren inspection team into a very unfavorable situation. They were probably having a headache over how to deal with the aftermath. She did not deliberately listen to the conversation outside. She looked at Chiba Haowu's dry lips and said, You need to drink some water. Chiba Haowu did not respond. Chiba Haowu did not need his answer. She walked over and poured a cup of water for him. Then, she used a spoon to feed him. Chiba Haowu only swallowed. There was no expression on his face. What do you want? Chiba Haowu asked softly. Is it just victory? If father knew what you did, he would definitely feel ashamed of your actions, Chiba Haowu said. Chiba Haowu finally reacted. A flash of sadness flashed across his eyes. Then it was replaced by anger. He pointed at the door of the ward and said, Get out. Chiba Haowu did not go out. She scooped another spoonful of water and fed it to Chiba Haowu. Then, she said, Since you were young, the person you admired the most was father. Although you've never said it, I can see it in your eyes. You have talent and you work harder than anyone else. You want to catch up to him and even surpass him. No one will doubt this, even I firmly believe this. You will definitely be able to do it. You will become a better swordsman than father. I don't understand swords. I only understand tea. However, I believe that everything in this world is connected. If you don't wash your hands clean, then the tea you brew will definitely have a strange smell. It's the same with swordsmanship. If you don't wash your heart clean, then your swordsmanship will no longer be pure. Are you teaching me a lesson? Chiba Haowu sneered. Teaching your failed brother a lesson? Tell him how much of a failure he is? Some people can never reach the pinnacle of swordsmanship in their entire lives. Because he is impatient for success. It's just like brewing tea. If the water isn't boiling, the tea will be green. If it's boiling for too long, the tea will be astringent. Little brother, I just want to tell you not to do inappropriate things at inappropriate times. You don't understand a swordsman's pursuit of the highest swordsmanship. You don't understand a swordsman's thirst for victory, Chiba Haowu said fiercely. You won't understand. I understand. How can I not understand? Chiba Haowu's voice was gentle and soft as if she would never be anxious. I also want to brew the best tea in the world. I also want to win. Who likes the feeling of failure? But I'm willing to wait. I believe that I can do it and one day I will. So, I don't mind giving myself more time. What I'm pursuing is different from what you're pursuing, Chiba Haowu said. What I want is to win every match. I won't allow myself to fail. But you still lost. Chiba Haowu said. You should know that there's still a gap between you and your opponent. Even that swordsman named Tang Cheng can't compare to you in terms of composure and magnanimity, let alone that teacher who stopped you. Chiba Haowu closed his eyes in pain. Fang Yen, that demon-like existence. He was like a giant with infinite strength, while Chiba Haowu was only a short and ugly dwarf. He was completely powerless before him. Why? Chiba Haowu clenched the bedsheet tightly. Because he used too much force, the plain white bedsheet was twisted out of shape, and he tore a few holes in it. Why can he do it? Why can he do it? He really couldn't understand. Fang Yen didn't look much older than him. Why was he able to have such skills? Could it be that Japanese swordsmen really couldn't compare to Wuxia swordsmen? Or could it be that because Wuxia was the origin of martial arts, any random swordsman from Wuxia was an unbeatable monster? Chiba Haowu came from a famous kendo family and was also a top-notch expert in the surrounding circle. Everyone who saw him was not stingy with their compliments. Everyone who fought with him said that his swordsmanship was amazing. Other than his father, who did not praise him, everyone said that his future was limitless. He was proud, but he was also impatient. He knew that his father didn't praise him because he wasn't good enough. He wanted to conquer everyone, including his father. During this trip to Wuxia, he first met Tang Cheng, a well-matched opponent, and then he met Fang Yen, a superhuman teacher. In the same class, there were already 2 people who could defeat him. Then, how many experts did Wuxia have? When he thought of the answer to this question, he felt a chill run down his spine. Chiba Haowu gently stroked Chiba Haowu's tightly furrowed brows, trying to calm them down a little. She said, if you have too many things on your mind, your hand that holds the sword will become heavier. Let go of your burdens and become a true swordsman. Win everyone's respect like your father. I don't care if I win people's respect. Chiba Haowu clutched his aching chest and said, I must defeat him. Only then can I wash away the humiliation I received today. Chapter 90. After some intense bargaining, Matsushima Ki, on behalf of the Wu Ren investigation team, accepted the many requests of assistance from Rosefinch Senior High School. Finally, the matter was temporarily put to rest. According to the usual rules, when the investigation team finished their work and was ready to return home, Rosefinch Secondary would host a cocktail party to welcome them. At the same time, it was also a farewell party. At this time, not only would Vice Principal Lu Chaoga, who was in charge of the reception, be present, but Rosefinch Secondary's principal, Zhang Xiaofeng, and other senior leaders and board members would also attend the cocktail party. However, after this incident, how could the Wu Rin investigation team still have the mood to attend such a banquet? They tried to reject it, but Rosefinch Secondary insisted. It was difficult to refuse such hospitality, so they could only put aside their worries and dress up to attend. Originally, Fang Yen was not qualified to attend this cocktail party. He was just an ordinary teacher at Rosefinch Secondary who had just been promoted from probation. He did not have any rank in the school. If a teacher like him could attend the cocktail party, they would probably have to prepare a hall that could accommodate hundreds of people. However, because he was one of the main receptionists for the Wu Rin investigation team, and the students from Class 9, led by him, had the upper hand in the competition with the Wu Rin investigation team, winning 3 out of 3 matches, even a leader like Li Ziqiang, who was extremely dissatisfied with Fang Yen, felt that he should invite Fang Yen over on such a day to reward him. In the past, most of the matches between Rosefinch and Wu Rin were evenly matched. Sometimes, they would even lose more than they won. They had never been suppressed like this, so much so that they could not even show their faces. Therefore, Fang Yen became the most relaxed person at the cocktail party. Everyone else was busy exchanging pleasantries and drinking, or saying goodbye reluctantly. Only Fang Yen was not loved by anyone. Those who were of a high enough rank were not willing to get close to him. Those who were not of a high enough rank were the students from the Wu Rin investigation team. They could not wait to surround Fang Yen and beat him up. Who would be willing to come up and drink with him? A person's loneliness was not loneliness. If you still felt lonely standing in the middle of a crowd, it meant that you were not popular. Fang Yen decided not to be a cheapskate anymore. Cheapskates have no friends. He sat alone in the corner of the hall, holding a glass of wine and thinking. "Sorry to disturb you," Chiba Kaori said gently as she stood in front of Fang Yen. She didn't speak well in Wuxia, and Fang Yen didn't understand Japanese, so she could only speak in English. Fang Yen looked up at the beautiful Japanese girl and asked, "What's the matter?" "I'm here to apologize to you on behalf of Chiba Halmu," said Chiba Kaori. "I know that there's a custom in Wuxia to apologize with wine." She turned around and took a glass of red wine from the tray the waiter was holding and said, "I'll drink to apologize." She held the glass with both hands and drank the red wine in one gulp. Then she put down the empty glass, took another glass of red wine, and drank it again. After 3 glasses, she wiped the wine off the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief. She looked at Fang Yen and said, "I hope you can accept Chiba Halmu's apology." "I don't accept it," said Fang Yen. Chiba Kaori looked at Fang Yen in surprise. She didn't understand what he meant. "First, we in Wuxia do have a custom of drinking to apologize, but it's mainly done among our colleagues and friends. Does Chiba Halmu think of us as friends? Second, we drink with white wine. A large glass of white wine. Is a sip of red wine an apology? This is your apology, not Chiba Halmu's apology. I believe that a guy who stabbed his opponent after a duel won't repent so easily, right? I think he hates me even more now. That's my guess. I don't care if you believe it or not, but I do. Of course, I have nothing to fear. If he dares to come, I'll just beat him up again." And the fourth, "Actually, I only like to say 3 things because it sounds more complete. Adding a 4th thing feels a little out of place. Don't doubt that I'm a Virgo. You're not only here to drink to apologize, but also for something else, right?" Chiba Kaori's breathing quickened. Her eyes widened unnaturally as she stared at Fang Yen. Everyone in the investigation team said that Wuxia was treacherous and cunning, and it seemed to be true. His eyes were always smiling, as if there was nothing he didn't know. Fang Yen picked up the glass and took a sip of the juice. He looked up at Chiba Kaori and said, "So, what's your purpose? You can't beat me. Quarrel? You're not that kind of person, and neither am I. Threatening me before leaving doesn't seem to have any meaning." Fang Yen suddenly felt a little embarrassed. "Are you here to be friends with me? That must be it." One must know that women's desire to compare themselves with others was very strong. She lost to Qin Etian in the tea ceremony, so she must be very angry. They were both proud and arrogant girls, So why was she stronger than them? Coincidentally, she heard rumors that Qin Etian liked her, so she wanted to be the first to conquer her. That way, she would be able to surpass Qin Etian. So what if you're good at making tea? So what if you have a strong aura? I still got the boy you like first. Fang Yan was very angry. What did they think he was? Hearing Fang Yan's words, Chiba Kaori became very embarrassed. She looked at Fang Yan and said, I just want to tell you on behalf of Chiba Haomu, he will definitely defeat you. He will defeat you fair and square. I like idiots who can't beat others but like to look forward to the future. It's as if he can't beat me now, but he can beat me in the future. Since he has this intention, I have no reason not to help him. Which ward is he staying in? I'll give him a chance to defeat me fair and square. He's a guest, so I can't let him leave with regrets. Sensei Fang Yan, I'm not talking about now. Chiba Kaori felt that she couldn't communicate with Fang Yan. What she meant was to give Chiba Haomu some confidence and more motivation. She would tell Chiba Haomu that she had already challenged Fang Yan on his behalf. Moreover, she would tell Chiba Haomu that she had predicted his victory in front of Fang Yan, who said that the competition was going to start now. When is that? Fang Yan asked. When Chiba Haomu steps on Huaxia's soil again. Chiba Kaori said. She knew that if Chiba Haomu didn't have the confidence to defeat Fang Yan, he probably wouldn't step on Huaxia's soil again. Fang Yan shook his head and said, It seems that the initiative is in Chiba Haomu's hands. If he can't beat me and hides in some Japanese village, where will I go to find him? You are insulting a swordsman's desire to win, Chiba Kaori said. I'm short-sighted. Why don't I go and let him beat me up now? Not far away, Vice Headmaster Matsushima Ki, who was drinking and chatting with Lu Chaoga, saw Fang Yan and Chiba Kaori in the corner. He immediately frowned and whispered to Saburo Fujino, who was beside him, Chiba Kaori and Fang Yan are together? Hurry up and go take a look. Don't let Chiba Kaori get bullied. Seeing that, Saburo Fujino was greatly shocked and he quickly moved toward the two of them. Fire, Theft, and Fang Yan. This was the consensus of the Wu Ren inspection team. This is an unforgettable trip for me. Matsushima Ki stood on the tea stage and gave a speech. This was the usual procedure of a cocktail party. She looked at the crowd below the stage with a solemn expression and said, I have led groups to over 20 countries and participated in nearly 100 exchange and inspection activities. However, none of them have been as shocking and thought-provoking as this one. Yes, I have been reflecting on it for the past few days. I have been reflecting on our mentality, our attitude, and more importantly, what is Wu Ren lacking? Wu Ren is a top-notch school in Japan, and its students are all favored by the heavens. Thus, be it Wu Ren's teachers or students, we are filled with pride and a sense of accomplishment. Pride is not wrong and achievement is not wrong, but the mistake is that while we maintain our pride, we lose the modesty and respect for our friends. Not only are we outstanding, our friends are also outstanding. Rosefinch Secondary has proven this point with its 3 victories. The culture of the Tang dynasty is in Japan. Many people say that. Sometimes even I feel proud of it. I thought that it was us, Japan, who had preserved and developed the culture of the Tang dynasty in Huaxia. We have a heart that cherishes and passes down our traditional culture. However, this time, I found out that it is not the case. We package our culture and display its essence to the world. However, this culture has been integrated into the lives of the people of Huaxia. This is too common for them. However, when there is a challenge, when the country needs it, countless outstanding people will step forward to fight for dignity, to fight for victory. We have witnessed all of this with our own eyes. We have lost. We have lost our dignity, Matsushima Ki said with incomparable honesty. We have also won. Me, my students, and every member of our Wu Ren inspection team, we have learned to reflect. We have a humble and unyielding determination. I believe in my students. I believe in my colleagues. I will bring back the defeat of these 3 matches as the greatest gift. The applause was thunderous. Sitting on the plane to Japan, All the members of the Wu Ren inspection team heaved a sigh of relief. Huaxia is too scary, someone said. That's right. Chiba Haomu is invincible, but he was defeated by them. Any random teacher is so powerful. Is their school full of such masters? Chapter 91. The happiest person was Tangqing when the Wu Ren investigation team left. He jumped up from the bed excitedly and said, "They really left? Xianxia Haowu left too?" "They left." Qin Yitin sat on the chair and was peeling an apple in her hand. Her movements were very skillful, and the whole piece of apple skin became a piece. It looked very beautiful as it hung in the air. "That's great. If Xianxia Haowu is fine, I won't have to lie in bed for half a year," Tangqing said happily. He had been worrying about this matter for the whole day yesterday. If Xianxia Haowu really stayed in Huaxia and didn't leave, then his life would be ruined. He did not want to spend his youth lying in bed in a vegetative state. He did not expect that in just one day, Xianxia Haowu would return to the country, and Qin Yitin, whom he could not forget, would take the initiative to visit him. Was there anything more blissful than this? Half a year? Qin Yitin raised his eyebrows and quickly understood. Fang Yan asked you to do it? Fang Yan sensei was worried that they would go back on their word. So you guys decided to go back on your word first? I did not. Tangqing quickly explained. He was worried that Qin Yitin would think that he was a dishonest boy who liked to play tricks. He said, "Sensei Fang Yan asked me to do it. I had to do it." Fighting poison with poison is indeed a good idea, Qin Yitin said. At least, this is the best way to deal with those who do not keep their word. Tangqing felt a little upset in his heart. Why was Qin Yitin always praising Fang Yan's teacher when it came to him? She was not a girl who liked to praise others. He wanted to ask what the relationship between Qin Yitin and Fang Yan was, but he could not bring himself to ask. It was rare for them to be so harmonious, and he did not want to ruin the atmosphere at this moment. After peeling the apple, the peel fell into the trash can on the ground. Tangqing said pitifully, "Be careful not to cut your hand. If I want to eat it, I can do it myself." Qin Yin took a bite of the apple and chewed on the crisp and sweet flesh. He looked at Tangqing and asked, "What did you say?" Tangqing swallowed his saliva and said, "I say, this apple tastes good, right?" Dong dong. There was a knock on the door. Tangqing shouted, "Please come in." Two girls in Rosefinch's uniforms stood at the door with a bouquet in their hands. Their faces were red as they said, "Student Tangqing, we heard that you were injured, so we came to see you." When they saw Qin Yitin sitting in front of the window in the ward, they hurriedly greeted Qin Yitin and said, "Senior Sister Yitin is here too." This was already the 20th batch of girls who had come to visit Tangqing in the past 2 days. Some came alone, some came in groups, and some came in groups. Tangqing, the most handsome boy in Rosefinch, was indeed very charming. This time, after he seriously injured a kendo master sent by Japan, his reputation was pushed to an unprecedented height. They sent flowers, apples, and all kinds of gifts. The apple that Qin Yitin ate was given by them. Qin Yitin smiled and nodded at them. He stood up from the chair and said to Tangqing, "I still have something to do, so I'll leave you in the care of my junior sisters." She took another bite of the apple. "What are you going to do?" Tangqing asked hurriedly. He hoped that Qin Yitin would stay and take care of him the most. No, it was fine for him to take care of Qin Yitin. Qin Yitin thought about it and said, "I'm going to sleep. I seem a little sleepy." "Senior Sister Yitin, take care." The two girls standing at the door greeted her respectfully. It wasn't until Qin Yitin's figure was far away that they felt the suffocating feeling disappear. "Classmate Tangqing, are you okay?" The girls laughed and surrounded him. "Sorry." Tangqing looked at them and said, "Can you peel an apple for me?" "Of course, no problem," the girls said happily. After all, not everyone had the opportunity to peel an apple for the most handsome boy in school. As soon as Fang Yan appeared at the door of Lu Chaoga's office, the secretary, Xiao Meng, who was sitting at the front desk, exclaimed, "Ah, Fang Yan." As soon as she shouted, The people in the surrounding offices all craned their heads to look over. Is Fang Yan? He looks so young. He knows martial arts? He doesn't look like it, but he's quite handsome. It's my favorite dish. He's the one who beat up the Japanese, like that. I heard that person is very powerful in Japan. After 2 days of adaptation, Fang Yan was already used to this kind of discussion. If the exchange competition with the Warren investigation team caused Tongqing's popularity to soar, then Fang Yan really became famous after this battle. Not only did he save Tang Cheng at the critical moment, he even beat up Qianya Haowu in front of everyone, causing everyone's eyes to pop out of their sockets. Now, the students of Class 9 walked on campus with their heads held high. Regardless of whether people asked, they would take the initiative to say, "Don't mess with me, our teacher knows martial arts." Fang Yan, this teacher who had just come to Rosefinch Secondary for a short period of time, had refreshed people's understanding of him and his own limits time and time again. Fang Yan waved his hand at everyone and said, "Go back. Everyone go back. I'm just an ordinary person. It's enough to watch for a few minutes. Don't let it affect your work." "You're not ordinary at all," Xiaomeng said with a red face. "I saw it with my own eyes. You're amazing." Xiaomeng was Lu Chaoga's secretary. After Zheng Jing was not welcomed by Lu Chaoga would bring Xiaomeng wherever she went. When Fang Yan beat up Chiba Haowu, Xiaomeng was also one of the bystanders. However, there were too many people watching at that time, and her boss was also beside her. Even though she felt that her heart was about to jump out of her chest, she could not take the initiative to express her admiration to Fang Yan. "Don't tell anyone. I'm a very low-key person," Fang Yan said with a smile. "Is Principal Lu in his office?" "Principal Lu is waiting for you in his office. He said that you can go straight in when you arrive." Xiaomeng's eyes were filled with affection. She looked at Fang Yan and said, "Mr. Fang, Transformers is on. Can I treat you to a movie?" "I don't watch cartoons," Fang Yan said. "It's not cartoons, it's..." Before Xiaomeng finished speaking, Fang Yan had already pushed the door and walked into Lu Chaoga's office. He ran so fast. Xiaomeng's eyes were full of little stars. No wonder he is so good at fighting. Lu Chaoga was looking at a file. This was Fang Yan's file. The file was very simple, so simple that people felt it was not simple. Lu Chaoga knew that either there was a problem with this file, or there was a problem with Fang Yan. Or, there was a problem with both of them. She also heard Xiaomeng's shouting outside the office. She knew that Fang Yan was now the hottest celebrity in the entire Rosefinch Secondary. Even Tangqing, the most popular guy in Rosefinch, was not as famous as him. Who asked him to be saved by Fang Yan? Moreover, a teacher, in order to avenge his own student, actually beat up a student from the inspection team in front of so many people. Which student wouldn't like such a protective teacher? Now, Fang Yan had already become the guardian angel in the mouth of many students. As Rosefinch's students boasted to the outside world, the entire student community in Huaqing now knew that Rosefinch had a teacher who knew Kung Fu. Lu Chaoga smiled bitterly. She really didn't know whether this was a good thing or a bad thing. Seeing Fang Yan push the door open and come in, Lu Chaoga said, "Sit down." She took out her tea can from her drawer and pushed it over, saying, "If you want tea, make it yourself." Fang Yan didn't sit down. He looked at Lu Chaoga with a strange expression and said, "Principal Lu, don't be so nice to me. Once you're nice to me, I feel that this is the last conversation we'll have. You want to expel me again, right? If you don't want to drink, then forget it." Lu Chaoga reached out to take the tea can back. Fang Yan quickly reached out and not only grabbed the tea can, but he also grabbed Lu Chaoga's hand. Lu Chaoga's ears were slightly red, and she looked at Fang Yan with a sharp gaze. What she meant was, "Hurry up and let go of my hand." Fang Yan didn't seem to feel the murderous intent in Lu Chaoga's eyes and said, "If you let go of the tea can, I'll let go." Lu Chaoga was so angry that she almost laughed. "You're holding my hand, how do you expect me to let go of the tea can?" "Let go," Lu Chaoga said in a low voice. "If you promise." Fang Yan originally wanted to insist, but seeing that Lu Chaoga's expression wasn't right, he quickly let go. Whether you promise or not, I'll let go. Lu Chaoga put the tea can in front of Fang Yen, but she didn't take it back. She looked up and down at Fang Yen, and after a serious look she asked, Fang Yen, what else are you hiding from me? Too much. Fang Yen said very frankly. My parents' hobbies, first love's name, 3 measurements, and so on. I didn't tell you. I don't need to know these things. Lu Chaoga wanted to get angry again. I know. That's why I didn't tell you. Lu Chaoga stared at Fang Yen with a sharp gaze and said, you know how to arrange flowers, know calligraphy, have a deep literary foundation, have a great-grandfather, and have profound kung fu. Fang Yen, who are you? Why did you come to Rosefinch? Others don't know why I came to Rosefinch, but don't you know? Fang Yen asked aloud. Lu Chaoga's heartbeat sped up for no reason, and she said expressionlessly, how would I know why you came? She was worried that Fang Yen would say something messy, and faintly worried that he wouldn't say those words. For the inheritance. Fang Yen said in a deep voice. I want to teach them how to arrange flowers, I want to teach them calligraphy, I want them to appreciate the glory of Chinese culture, I want them to not be bullied. Spider-Man said that the greater a person's ability, the more responsibility he has. I want to follow his example and contribute what I have learned to the country, to society, and to my students. Yes, I'm such a person. A person who is simple but not simple, ordinary but not ordinary. Tell me the truth. Lu Chaoga shouted angrily. I'm afraid. You don't know, that woman hits people too hard. I'm scared of her. Fang Yen said with a sad face, feeling wronged. Chapter 92. The first time I met her, she beat me so hard that I couldn't get out of bed for more than 10 days. The second time, she broke my leg. The third time, she knocked out 2 of my front teeth. Even now, people still call me a toothless rabbit. Tell me, how can there be such a violent woman in this world? Is she still a woman? Can I not run away? If I don't run away, who knows what she will do to me this time? What if she blinds my eyes? What if she knocks my nose in? She has done that before. Which part of my face is the ugliest? My nose. My nose was so handsome and straight, but after 2 punches from her, it became like this. People who don't know me might think I was born like this. Fang Yan's history of growing up was the history of Yi Rou's brutal violence against him. Thinking of the grievances and wounds on his body, he had the urge to burst into tears. Why is my life so bitter? Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoga, who was sitting across from him. She was expressionless, and there was no sympathy in her eyes. Don't you think I'm pitiful? Fang Yan asked curiously. Shouldn't she be hugging him and crying bitterly when he said it so miserably? This woman is so heartless. Do you think I'll believe you? Lu Chaoga said with a sneer. Fang Yan opened his eyes wide. In all honesty, every word he said this time was the truth. How can you not believe me? 2 days ago, you seriously injured a swordsman from Japan and sent him to the hospital. What kind of woman can beat you? Lu Chaoga asked sarcastically. Bastard, does he think I'm an idiot? There is someone more powerful than me. Fang Yan wanted to explain. He regretted that he didn't ask someone to record the video when Yi Rou beat him. Otherwise, the evidence would be irrefutable. Fang Yan. Lu Chaoga interrupted Fang Yan. I want to hear the truth from you. If you really don't want to talk about it, you can tell me directly. I won't force you. I can't force you. But you don't have to make up such a vulgar story to deal with it. Be honest. Fang Yan's eyes reddened. Wait until you want to talk about it. Lu Xiaoga waved his hand disinterestedly and said, no matter where you come from or what your purpose is, as long as you do it for the good of the students and the school, I will still support you in your work as I have in the past. This time, Class 9's performance is very good. The school should reward you. What do you think? Can you give me a raise? Fang Yan put away his depressed mood and said to fight for the benefits that should belong to him. Impossible, Lu Chaoga said. You've just been promoted from an internship to an official teacher. This is already against the rules. It's impossible for me to get a raise in the near future. Lu Chaoga frowned and asked, Are you short of money? Not really. It's just that I'm afraid of being poor and want to save some money to protect myself, Fang Yan said. He still had another thought that he didn't say. He was getting more and more famous in Rosefinch and among the students in Huacheng. What if Yi Gentle found his whereabouts and chased after him? He would have to run away again. Doesn't he need money to run away? If there's a critical moment and you need money urgently, you can ask me for help, Lu Chaoga said. This was a promise. After saying that, Lu Chaoga was inexplicably angry in her heart. Why can't I avoid the topic of money every time I'm with this guy? Shouldn't educated people be ashamed to talk about money? Thank you, Principal Lu. I knew we're on the same side. Fang Yan was overjoyed. What's the best way to test the friendship between friends these days? Borrow money. No matter how much it is, if someone is willing to lend money to you, it means they treat you as an important friend. According to previous practice, the school can allocate a portion of the funds for you to go on a trip. Lu Chaoga said. That's fine. Fang Yan nodded with a smile. Take the students on a sightseeing tour, feel the beauty of nature, and at the same time deepen the relationship between them. This is a good idea. The school is indeed more meticulous and long-term than I am. I'm always thinking about whether I can get a raise or not. The teacher leading the team needs to be the homeroom teacher, Lu Chaoga said. The smile on Fang Yan's face froze. What does this mean? They allocated funds for the students to go on a trip, but they kicked me, the hero, away. Chen Dehai picked up a big bargain. How can they play people like this? Lu Chaoga saw Fang Yan's reaction and laughed in her heart. Kid, I don't believe I can't teach you a lesson. She took out a piece of paper from the folder in front of her and handed it over. She said, from today onwards, you are the homeroom teacher of Class 9. I'll hand over Class 9 to you. Fang Yan grinned and said, I knew the school leaders wouldn't let us. The teachers who work wholeheartedly feel wronged. Sure enough, isn't the reward coming? Fang Yan. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan seriously and said, the homeroom teacher is different from the teacher. The teacher only needs to be responsible for the subject he teaches and ensure the student's academic performance. But the homeroom teacher is not the same. He not only needs to be responsible for the student's academic performance, but also the students' lives. Whether the students come to class, why they don't come to class, what is the reason for the student's declining performance, what is the reason for the student's improvement performance, if the students have conflicts in school, if the students have conflicts outside, they also need to find a way to solve it. The homeroom teacher is not the student's parents, but they are better than the student's parents. This position has a great responsibility. I understand. Fang Yan nodded and said. On the first day I came to Rosefinch, I told Principal Lu that I want to dedicate my youth, talent, and body. Where there is light, there is warmth. That was not a joke. Fang Yan, don't say such unrealistic things. Lu Chaoga interrupted Fang Yan's words. No one wants you to dedicate your youth and body. You just need to be serious and diligent, and that will be enough to become an excellent homeroom teacher. I helped you get the position of homeroom teacher of Class 9 to reward you for your excellent performance in receiving the Warren inspection team. Also, I have something I want you to do. What is it? Pilot, Lu Chaoga said. Pilot of Chinese studies. What do you mean? Fang Yan did not understand. Learn Farewell to Cambridge Again, on Sparrow Bridge and Rainy Alley, in Rainy Alley. Enrich the students' knowledge of ancient literature in class and cultivate their interests and hobbies, such as the tea ceremony, calligraphy, and of course, martial arts. Actually, you are already doing it. But I hope to make it more systematic. If Class 9 is successful, I will consider promoting it to the whole school, Lu Chaoga said. She looked at Fang Yan and said, You are the most suitable candidate. Aren't you afraid that I will lead the students of Class 9 astray? Fang Yan said with a smile. You have to know that it is still the fractional theory. If I bring them to learn these things all day, what if their scores fall behind? Who says that those who know the tea ceremony and calligraphy can't get high scores? Such people are more open-minded and better at thinking. I believe that they will be able to get better scores. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan and said, Of course, this is your responsibility. I hope that the students of Class 9 can be good at the tea ceremony and calligraphy, and they can also get good scores. This is the real reason why I am wholeheartedly promoting Rosefinch's education reform. You ask me to do so much, but you don't give me a raise, Fang Yan, but I am still willing to do these things for you. Fang Yan said with a smile, what you think is also what I think. What you want to do is also what I want to do. I hope that they can write beautiful words and make beautiful poems. I hope that they can make delicious tea and practice sharp swords. The wisdom of the youth is the wisdom of the country, and the strength of the youth is the strength of the country. If every student is like me, who would dare to provoke us? I will accept this task, Fang Yan said heroically. I will definitely give you a reborn Class 9, a Class 9 that will make everyone look at it in a new light. Let's wait and see, Lu Chaoga said. Principal Lu is busy, so I won't bother you. As Fang Yan spoke, he picked up the can of tea on the desk and said, Principal Lu, you don't need to send me off. I can go out by myself. Lu Chaoga opened her mouth and wanted to shout, but in the end, she just shook her head and smiled bitterly. As soon as the office door was closed, the phone on the desk rang. Lu Chaoga glanced at the caller ID, hesitated for a moment, and finally pressed the answer button. What's the matter? Lu Chaoga asked coldly. I am at the school gate. A man's hearty voice came from the phone as if he didn't hear the indifference in Lu Chaoga's tone at all, and said, Mom asked me to pick you up for dinner when I get off work. I still have work to do, Lu Chaoga said. I will wait for you at the gate, the man said. It may take a long time. After hanging up the phone, Lu Chaoga was a little upset. She pulled out the jade guanyin from her chest and gently rubbed it with her hand. A cool feeling poured into her palm, and her mood gradually calmed down. Whenever she was unhappy, this jade guanyin could bring her comfort that ordinary people couldn't understand. This kind of life. When will it end? She sighed, and there was a heart-palpitating coldness in her eyes. Chapter 93. It was good to be at home, but it was hard to eat outside. Since moving out of Jiangqin's house, Fang Yan had a hard time eating delicious food. The food in the school cafeteria was really not good, and the money in Fang Yan's pocket could hardly support him to go to the restaurant in front of the school every day to improve his life. What's more, he didn't have the guts to spend all the money at once. He had to save a certain amount of money so that he could run away again at any time. Therefore, even if he was a little afraid of his grandfather, Lu Gong, he still liked to go to his house to eat when he had nothing to do. Lu Gong had a small appetite, so he put down his bowl and chopsticks first. He looked at Fang Yan, who was eating happily, and said, Come to the study after eating. Fang Yan raised his head in confusion, but his grandfather had already left his seat. His grandmother slammed the chopsticks on the table and said angrily, You old man, why did you ask Fang Yan to go to your study again? I'm warning you, if you scold Fang Yan and drive him away, I won't let you off. Fang Yan quickly comforted his grandmother and said, Grandma, don't be angry. Who said that Grandpa asked me to go to the study to scold me? Maybe he was praising me. How can I not know his character? If he praised you, he would have said it in front of me. Why would he need to pull you to the study? His grandmother knew her husband's character very well, so she said angrily. That's not for sure. Grandpa has been urging me to read books recently. Maybe he asked me to go to the study to check how well I'm reading. You're already a teacher. What's there to test? My grandson is well educated. In his grandmother's eyes, her child was the embodiment of perfection, without any flaws. The sea of books is boundless. Even Grandpa doesn't dare to say that he's learned enough. What's the point of my knowledge? Fang Yan said with a smile. He quickly finished the bowl of millet porridge in the bowl and half a steamed bun on the plate. He said, Grandma, I'll go upstairs to have a look. Be careful. If that old man scolds you, you can come downstairs to Grandma. Grandma said worriedly. Grandma, don't worry. Grandfather won't make things difficult for me, Fang Yan said with a smile. When Fang Yan walked into the study, his grandfather was standing in front of the table writing. Every day, he would write for 2 hours, an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. It was also because of his decades of hard work that his calligraphy reached the pinnacle and formed a style of its own. The outside world called it iron bone calligraphy. It meant that his handwriting was as solid as steel, and every stroke seemed to be carved with an awl. Her grandfather rarely wrote for others, so there were very few calligraphy treasures that had been circulated outside. However, in the black market, each word could be sold for a sky-high price of hundreds of thousands to millions of words. Grandpa was one of the few calligraphers in Wuxia who valued their works according to their calligraphy. Even some of the top international masters still valued their works according to the ruler. It couldn't be helped. Who asked the former prime minister to personally ask him for his calligraphy and said, "If you get an iron bone calligraphy, it can be a family heirloom?" Therefore, after Du Qing got his grandfather's calligraphy, he cherished it. He personally visited his grandfather to give him a brush fee, which was also to express his gratitude and the importance he attached to this matter. Yachu. On the white xian paper, these 2 big characters were written neatly. Grandpa's brush was very heavy. At first glance, it seemed that the ink had soaked the thin xian paper and burned 2 big holes. However, when you picked up the xian paper, you would find that the 2 characters were intact. The characters were still on the paper, and the paper was still intact. The brush was heavy, and the brush was light. Grandpa's grasp of strength tended to be perfect. Seeing his grandfather put down the brush, Fang Yan quickly handed him a clean towel and praised loudly, "Good calligraphy." The strength penetrated the back of the paper, making it hard for me to breathe. "You won't be able to breathe?" Lu Gong didn't respond to Fang Yan's words. Even when Fang Yan deliberately made a low-level mistake while praising, he pretended not to hear it. "You're very famous in Rosefinch." Fang Yan chuckled and said, "What did Grandpa hear? You used your family's martial arts to seriously injure someone and send him to the hospital. What do you think I heard?" Lu Gong stared at Fang Yan sternly and said, "What did you promise me back then?" "I said that I wouldn't easily use force." "Grandpa, you don't know what happened that day. If you knew, you would also beat that Japanese up," Fang Yan explained. Lu Gong stared at Fang Yan for a while, then nodded and said, "That's true." Fang Yan felt that the old man was a little strange today. He was stubborn and stubborn. Once he made up his mind, even 9 bulls couldn't pull him back. When did he become so easy to talk to? "Grandpa, are you okay?" Fang Yan asked carefully. "What can happen to me?" Lu Gong said with a straight face. "You're not angry?" "Why would I be angry? I hit someone. Chowga has already explained the cause of the incident to me. Otherwise, do you think I would let it go easily?" Lu Gong said with a cold snort. "Chowga? Headmaster Lu?" Fang Yan looked at Lu Gong thoughtfully and said, "Are you familiar with her? Who do you think invited Chowga back?" A rare smile appeared on Lu Gong's face. Obviously, this was something that made him very proud. "You invited Lu Chowga back? Brat, you have no respect for your elders. You have to call me Headmaster Lu." Lu Gong scolded. Fang Yan thought that Lu Chowga was only a few years older than him, so why couldn't he call her Lu Chowga? There was a reason for this incident, so I won't pursue it. But have you thought about it? You're so famous now, and you've exposed your skills. Don't tell me the Yi family didn't notice? Your mother called several times to ask about it, and your grandmother covered it up. You running away from home is such a big thing. Don't tell me they really didn't investigate? Do you think they really don't know you're in Huaqing? Fang Yan's heart was a little cold. He said, "I also thought about it. Knowing is one thing. But I've already run away. They don't have to come and drag me back, do they? I'm so disappointed. Why would they drag you back?" Lu Gong said, "Revenge breeds revenge. When will it end? What era is it now? Is it still fashionable to fight and kill? Fang Yan, I'm very happy that you came to Flower City to look for me." Since the path of martial arts was blocked, he would continue on the path of teaching and educating people. As long as you can settle down, I believe that you will also achieve extraordinary results. Grandpa, what have I become in my teacher's line of work? He's still a teacher. Coming out of his grandfather's villa, Fang Yen felt a little depressed. It was as if Yi Ro would suddenly jump out from the grass on the side of the road and say, "Fang Yen, guess who I am?" Then she would rush up and beat him up. Not only did Yi Ro make him nervous, but also the expectation of his family was a heavy pressure. He ran away from home. His father, who had high hopes for him, must be very disappointed. Grandpa, who was paralyzed in bed, must have suffered a huge blow, right? And that old drunkard? He must have gulped down a few mouthfuls of burning knife and cursed, "You're useless, right?" It wasn't that Fang Yen didn't work hard. On the contrary, he worked even harder than everyone else. The more he wanted to prove himself, the more he couldn't prove himself. Since he had comprehended the Tai Chi realm, the Fang family had regarded it as the hope of revitalizing the family. However, in the past 2 years, the more anxious he was, the more stagnated he became in the Tai Chi realm. In the end, the Tai Chi heart, which had been rotating slowly, stopped moving. It became a stillborn baby. Fang Yen was frightened. He knew that once he fought with Yi Ro, the secret of the Tai Chi realm would be exposed. That woman was not only skilled in martial arts, but also had a good eye. So he ran away. Just like a coward. However, he was the successor of Fang's Tai Chi realm. He could escape for a while, but could he escape for the rest of his life? Fang Yen thought of the sudden reaction of the Tai Chi heart again in his grandfather's study. At that time, his grandfather pointed out his heart and said that he lacked a kind of spirit. Everyone needed a spirit, and they also needed to have their own pursuits. What was his pursuit? He deliberately pursued to improve his martial arts, but he got the opposite result. Instead of making progress, he was retreating. The Tao was natural. If it was not natural, how could he feel the infinite Tao? At that moment, he felt as if he had been enlightened. Fang Yen knew that his escape this time was the right choice, because he might have found another way to say goodbye. Although that way was full of thorns and weeds, and he did not know where to go, he knew that there must be a way. When I leave Rosefinch, it will be the day I reach the Tai Chi realm, Fang Yen said to himself. There was no wind or moon, and the air was dry and hot. Fang Yen was lost in his thoughts as he walked towards the courtyard he was staying in. His grandfather lived in the easternmost courtyard, and the one that belonged to Lu Chaoga, where Fang Yen lived, was the westernmost one. When he passed by the Yangong Causeway, he heard a low shout. "Stop, all of you stop! Zheng Guodong, you hooligan, Zheng Guodong?" These 3 words were like the key to activating the password. Fang Yen immediately retracted his thoughts. He glanced around and immediately ran toward the bank of Sparrow River. The scene in front of him caused his eyes to crack and his anger to boil. Under the reflection of the clear river, Fang Yen saw that Zheng Guodong and Li Yang were blocking a girl, one on the left and one on the right, not letting her leave. The girl had her arms crossed in front of her chest and was resisting with all her might. The girl cursed, but this did not dispel Zheng Guodong and Li Yang's enthusiasm. The 2 of them laughed and tangled with each other. They had no intention of letting go of this little sheep. "Scum," Fang Yen cursed. He immediately took out his phone from his pocket. Chapter 94. If Fang Yen didn't talk to Zhu Jian in advance and saw this shameful scene, he might directly rush up and slap Zheng Guodong and Li Yang 300 times, and then drag them out to see the school leaders to give them a heavy punishment. They didn't want to be good students, but learned to be hooligans. Which hooligan had a good ending. However, he already knew the real reason why his predecessor, Zhu Jian, was expelled from the school. Naturally, he couldn't repeat the same mistake. Therefore, he had to guard against Zheng Guodong and Li Yang. Fang Yen turned on the video function of his mobile phone, but the crime scene was dark. There was no usable image on the mobile phone. It didn't matter if there was no image as long as there was sound. With sound, at least Fang Yen could prove himself clearly. No matter how the subsequent plot developed, Fang Yen could be in an invincible position. Fang Yen felt that he was really 2F*King smart. "Fang Yen, You bastard, you beast? Don't come over, don't come over. The girl suddenly raised her voice and shouted. Fang Yan's expression froze, and the mobile phone in his hand almost fell to the ground. What was going on? What made him vomit blood was that Zheng Guodong and Li Yang, who were trying to take off the girl's clothes like hooligans, turned into the embodiment of justice and the messenger of purity. Zheng Guodong blocked the girl with his body and shouted, Fang Yan, don't come over. I'm telling you, as long as I, Zheng Guodong, am here, you can't hurt Su Xia. Su Xia? Who is Su Xia? Fang Yan felt very wronged. He didn't know her at all. Li Yang became more arrogant. He didn't know when a wooden stick appeared in his hand. He waved the wooden stick in his hand in the air and shouted, Fang Yan, don't think that you can do evil just because you are good at martial arts. I'm telling you, unless I, Li Yang, die and you step over my dead body. Otherwise, don't think about hurting my girlfriend. Girlfriend? Su Xia is Li Yang's girlfriend? Fang Yan understood. This was a trap that saw him as the prey. Their target was him. They wanted to ruin his reputation and expel him from the school. It's fine if you don't move, but if you do, you'll hurt others. Fang Yan slipped his phone into his pocket. There was no point in continuing to take photos. All that was left was his criminal record. No, a pending criminal record. There were victims, witnesses, and they would find a way to get physical evidence. Only 2 of the 3 fops were present. The other one, Chen Tao, must be lying in ambush not far away. Fang Yan was furious. He hated being wronged in such a humiliating way. He could imagine that if this matter were to blow up, there would be no place for him in Rosefinch Secondary. No matter what the truth was, it was difficult for him to stand on the podium with such a scandal on his back. Fang Yan smiled. He was amused by these fellows. Last time, they were really up to no good and were discovered by Zhu Jian, who was passing by. Then they beat them at their own game. When Zhu Jian was busy protecting the girl from harm, they took a photo of the girl wearing Zhu Jian's jacket and the 2 of them hugging each other. Then, they kicked the girl and Zhu Jian out of the school together. This time, they were smarter. They designed a set of wolf trapping techniques, specifically to deal with Fang Yan. Fang Yan, aren't you good at fighting? Aren't you good at fighting? We won't clash with you directly, but we will think of a way to ruin your reputation. It was not hard to imagine that Fang Yan would be seen by someone with ulterior motives when he went to his grandfather's house for dinner tonight. They immediately discussed setting up a trap. When Fang Yan walked out of his grandfather's house, the show would officially begin. They knew that no teacher would be indifferent when faced with such a situation. Moreover, the culprits were Zheng Guodong and Li Yang. They also knew that there was no moon or stars tonight. The sky was pitch black, and it was hard to see one's fingers in the forest by the Rosefinch River. It was difficult to use mobile phones and other video equipment. Even if you recorded it, it would be all insulting and attacking Fang Yan. If Fang Yan used it as evidence, wouldn't he be sent to prison? What kind of crime was it for a teacher to molest a student? There was no need to ask. I've always thought that all of you have accomplished nothing. You're just a bunch of good-for-nothings who have nothing better to do, Fang Yan said with a smile. But at this moment, I have to apologize to you. You are much better than I thought. Who the F***ck are you talking about? Li Yang opened his mouth and wanted to curse. Fang Yan's words were too harsh. His little heart couldn't take it. Zheng Guodong grabbed his arm and shook his head at him, signaling him not to be impulsive and to proceed according to the script they had arranged. Look at this idea, look at this setup, look at this acting. You look like professional actors. No, even some professional actors are not as professional as you. You must have put in a lot of effort, right? Fang Yan, what are you talking about? So what if you are a teacher? Can a teacher molest a female student? Do you have any humanity? Do you have any shame? Zheng Guodong was very immersed in the role, pointing at Fang Yan and scolding. It's a pity that you are not bad guys. Fang Yan said. What makes me happy is that you chose the right way to say goodbye. Being 1099% bad guy. Very good, you have a clear sense of yourself. You didn't go the wrong way. You are the bad guy. 1010% bad guy. Fang Yan, go away. If you dare to touch my girlfriend, I will fight you. The girl hiding behind Zheng Guodong and Li Yang also scolded, Fang Yan, I can't believe that you are a teacher on the surface, but do such a thing behind my back? If Zheng Guodong and Li Yang didn't come in time, I would have been by you. 55555. To be honest, Fang Yan was in a very tricky situation. Because, no matter what he said, others could say that he was quibbling. Zhu Jian was unlucky, but at least the victim was firmly on his side. The victim helped Zhu Jian, so even if Zhu Jian was expelled from school, he would only be cursed for having an affair with a female student. Fang Yan was unlucky that even the victim stood on the opposite side and accused him of trying to molest her. If the police believed that the evidence was conclusive, Fang Yan would be committing a crime. Therefore, the methods that Zheng Guodong and the others played on Fang Yan were much more dirty and vicious than the methods that they used on Zhu Jian, who asked Fang Yan to bully them. Naturally, they hated Fang Yan more than they hated Zhu Jian. Fang Yan looked at the performance of the three people in front of him and asked, Who is Su Xia? Fang Yan, stop pretending. Su Xia is my girlfriend, the great beauty of our rosefinch. Don't you know? If you don't know, why did you follow her to this place? Do you think you can shirk your responsibility like this? We will definitely report to the school and make them expel a dirty teacher like you. You are the scum of the teachers. Why do these lines sound so familiar? Fang Yan thought about it seriously and finally understood. These words were originally said to Zheng Guodong, Li Yang, and Qin Tao. He didn't expect that these three scumbags would successfully counterattack, and now they could openly return these words to Fang Yan without changing a single word. From this aspect, Fang Yan was indeed a very successful teacher. Do you think that I will be unlucky just because you found a woman to be your accomplice? Fang Yan said with a sneer. Did I touch her? Who saw me touch her? I was a few meters away from her. Don't you think your acting is too much? Do you think that by recording your voices of scolding me, it will prove the fact that I tried to molest that person? Don't you think it's too simple? Also, the sky is so dark. I'm afraid that Qin Tao's phone can't record this scene, right? Could it be that he has more advanced equipment? In order to put on this big show, to drive me out of the school, to send me to prison, are you willing to pay a lot of money? Okay, the show is over. Fang Yan waved his hand and walked toward Zheng Guodong and Li Yang step by step. I can talk to you, but I can't say that I can't kneel to you. Let's do something practical. Zheng Guodong shouted even more vigorously and shouted at the top of his voice, Fang Yan, don't you dare. Help, help, Fang Yan is molesting a female student. The girl's voice was even more shrill and miserable. She shouted with a sobbing tone, If you dare to come over, I will die in front of you. Fang Yan, I will not let you go even if I become a ghost. Li Yang waved the wooden stick in his hand vigorously and shouted loudly, If you come over, I will beat you to death. I will beat you to death. This is self-defense. The police will not arrest me. The wooden stick was in Fang Yan's hand. Fang Yan's right hand was holding one end of the stick. No matter how hard Li Yang tried, he could not pull the stick out of Fang Yan's hand. Let go, Li Yang shouted as he exerted force. Fang Yan didn't let go. He exerted a bit of force and lifted the wooden stick up. Because Li Yang's hands were holding the stick too tightly, his body was lifted into the air along with the stick by Fang Yan. Fang Yan retracted his right hand and pushed it forward. The stick carried Li Yang's body and flew towards the Bird River. Ah! Li Yang was like a magical youth flying in the air with a broom in his hand. Of course, this magical youth's magic was not very good. Plop! Li Yang's body fell into the river. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.